a minute, and if he's not here, we'll just start and we'll do what we can.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I know he says he's setting up, but okay. Let's get this show on the road. You guys know the drill. I'll introduce the topic.
Hello.
Say hi to my guests, and then we'll go. Everyone ready?
No, actually. How does my mic sound? This is a new mic. I'm just setting it up.
It's a smidge quiet.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Okay.
I can just turn you up on my end. It's no big deal.
Okay.
Okay. With that, we'll start. Okie dokie. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Whick TV. It's a cross ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you today? We are going to be talking about illegal immigrants and access to healthcare, healthcare insurance, health benefits, healthcare in general, all these things. Should someone who is not in our country legally have access to these things? To what extent? When should we cut them off? Should we let them bleed out in the emergency room parking lot? What's the line here? We're going to talk about it today. We're going to have a great discussion. We got one more guy coming who should be here hopefully soon, but I want to start on time, get the blood flowing, right? Get everyone into the mood, if you will. And we're going to give each of these lovely individuals introductions, opening statements, and then we'll just get into it. We're going to start with Radical Coder. Tell people who you are, why they should listen to you, and what are your thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan, Radical Coder. I have a dog named Umbreon. That's probably the most endearing thing about me. But yeah, I do progressive politics, debates, and coding, fun stuff like that. I teach people how to code, and I talk about things. So as for illegal immigrants and healthcare, as I understand it, in the United States, we have something called EMTALA. And this requires emergency rooms to treat and stabilize any individual, regardless of their immigration status. So this means that they don't need to check citizenship or insurance or identity. They don't even have to be conscious, which is probably a good thing, right? Because of this, undocumented immigrants already do receive healthcare in the United States, but only in case of emergencies. This is the most expensive way to give people healthcare, oftentimes like 10 to 50 times more expensive than clinic-based treatment. And uncompensated ER care raises private insurance premiums and local taxes for U.S. citizens. Rural hospitals are closing, partly because they cannot absorb rising uncompensated ER costs. Undocumented immigrants are barred from Medicaid, CHIP, ACA subsidies, and marketplace plans under federal law, which is relevant to, I think, why we all gathered here tonight. I think it started from like Dev sharing a tweet that was showing a bunch of Democratic presidential hopefuls all raising their hand, saying that they would include undocumented immigrants in their plans for healthcare. They didn't. They all have different ideas of what that would look like in practice. But they did all basically include those people, at least giving them access to the marketplace. But in any case, because of the EMTALA, it is the case right now that illegal immigrants do have access to some form of healthcare, and we can kind of talk about whether we want to remove that, which obviously would be an interesting goal and would cause a lot of problems, like making it difficult for even U.S. citizens to get healthcare if they, show up without a wallet, for example. Yeah, I just don't think that's a very good idea, but we can talk about whether or not we want to expand their access, whether we want to include them in marketplace or not, and how. And I think we probably should, for a wide variety of reasons that we can get into.
We will get into it. Thank you for being here. Hopefully your buddy shows up soon. We're going to give the mic to Lactoid. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Lacto. You can find me on Lacto TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. When I heard, and Whick can attest to this, when I heard that Dev here was going to be my ally, I was actually pretty shocked because my understanding is that Dev's a pretty left-wing guy. I'm probably the most right-wing person here. I'm probably the most libertarian person here. Maybe I'll be corrected. We'll see. But I can accept that having ERs treat people who come to the ER, it's a necessity, given that the treatment is time sensitive. If there's a situation that arises where somebody can't have their identity proven, their citizenship proven, their insurance status proven, if they have it, right, there's a problem of, oh shit, we didn't give them the life-saving care necessary. So they died. It turns out they actually had it, or they actually were citizens. So I think that's probably the one that we would have to keep. I'd be okay with increasing the ability of medical providers to go after people for debt incurred through ER treatment, and that would include illegal immigrants. But in terms of really any other kind of healthcare, and really the kind of healthcare that the Democrats were referring to, I think in that 2019 debate, and what Democrats generally are referring to when they talk about this, and what the California Democrats were referring to when they actually implemented this program of expanding Medicaid coverage to illegal immigrants, was expanding Medicaid coverage to illegal immigrants, paying for illegal immigrants' health care in the way that Medicaid and Medicare covers people's health care. I think this is crazy. We should be trying to minimize government spending. We shouldn't be trying to maximize it. And we especially shouldn't be trying to maximize it amongst a population that, first of all, doesn't pay into the healthcare system to the extent that citizens do. And on top of that, I mean, did kind of break the law to be here. It seems a little bit odd to reward that with a whole bunch of free services. So I'd be okay with, again, emergency room care, give those hospitals more ability to seek reimbursement. But then when it comes to pretty much anything else, I don't think that illegal immigrants should get free health care on the taxpayer's dime. I think it's pretty ridiculous.
Okay, thank you for being here. We will get into it as we go. Dev, what are your thoughts?
I'm also very surprised that the only person you could find to pair me up with was Lactoid Whick, because I'm very anti-Trump, and from what I understand, you're very pro-Trump. And I wouldn't call myself left-wing, but I'm definitely a liberal. And I know, I think you, Radical Coder, would say that liberals are not leftists. So I find myself more in the middle. I have a different view of this, or a different angle to talk about this than both of you, I think. So if you go back to, I'm gonna have to go on a Vladimir Putin speech here. Okay, give me 2 minutes. All right, you go back to 1648. Okay, we had the end of the 80 Years' War between the Dutch Republic and the Spanish Empire. We had the end of the 30 Years' War, which was a Catholic versus Protestant war. Okay, and out of that we get the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. Westphalia is the beginnings of what we can call today the liberal, democratic, capitalist, globalist, international world order. It's the order of rules and norms and standards, as opposed to the order of might makes right. Westphalian sovereignty is the idea that all countries, no matter how large or small, or how strong or weak, they all have an equal right to sovereignty. The internal affairs of a country is not the business of another country. It's basically the first time we managed to describe a moral rationale for non-interference with other societies. The American Revolution was justified under the Westphalian principle. Decolonization was justified under the Westphalian principle. This is an important part of the liberal order that we currently live under, that I think is a good thing. But Westphalian sovereignty only works if you recognize that the territory that is under the jurisdiction of the sovereign, meaning that he has the responsibility to administer that territory responsibly. And there is territory that sovereign power controls, and then territory that it does not. For example, there's no shortage of stupid Americans that go overseas and claim that they have their First and Second Amendment rights. That's just bullshit. Other countries do not live under the American Constitution. But what this means, though, is that borders are actually very important. Borders demark where sovereignty begins and ends. When people enter into a country through lawful means, they consent to be governed by the laws of that country. They are accepting that the sovereign administrator of that territory has legitimate authority over them. If they don't consent to that, then they don't come in. Illegal immigration breaks this mechanism of consent, which is why you must deport illegal immigrants. If you don't deport illegal immigrants, then you don't have a border, which means you don't have a demarked territory where the sovereign has authority, which means you don't have the Westphalian non-interference principle. the entire liberal international project falls apart without borders. It's as simple as that. Now, I think Trump intuitively gets at this when he says things like, if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. But I also think that Trump is actually too stupid to know what he's talking about. But there is at least something underneath there that we can grasp onto. All of my opinions regarding what to do with illegal immigrants is downstream from the Westphalian Principle. They should not have access to any universal healthcare program. They shouldn't have access to any sort of tax benefits. They shouldn't be able to get ID. They shouldn't be able to hold or run for public office. They shouldn't be able to vote. They shouldn't be able to hold a job. They should be deported. They should be deported, and that's that. Now, I'm not anti-immigration. I think legal immigrants should be free to do all of these things, and I'm very pro-legal immigration. But the existence of illegal immigrants, if you don't deal with them by deporting them, they undermine the validity of the entire system. And that's my view of it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dev. That was a great little speech. We'll get into it as we go. But we're going to give some time to our last guest of the evening to introduce himself and kind of give his thoughts on healthcare and illegal immigrants. Go ahead, Fatty.
How are you guys doing? Sorry for the delay. Am my audio sounding good? Everything okay?
You're fine. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. So I didn't prepare an opening statement, but I will say this. Even Donald Trump is okay with illegal immigration. A couple of months ago, we wanted to pass an executive order to make sure that the people, these billionaires on the hotel industry and agriculture, add their illegals to actually do the job that Americans don't want to do. So knowing that these illegals are walking around Americans, knowing that they go to schools that your kids go, knowing that you go to the hotels where they float the clothing and the bed sheets that you lay on, knowing that they are picking the food that you actually insert inside of your body, it's of national interest, like a very high order, that they are healthy and they don't spread around disease, that are going to cost American dollars, not just money by treating them, but by treating yourself. So I'll leave that as my opening statement for now, and then we can talk about it.
And with that, let's get into the discussion. If you feel like you're being talked over, if you feel like you're unable to get a word in edgewise, just raise your hand or DM me or get my attention somehow, and I'll make sure that you get a chance to speak. And with that, let's open up the floor. Go ahead.
So I guess the first thing, I mean, it seems like actually everyone except maybe Dev actually is, everyone seems to agree that illegal immigrants should get some degree of healthcare in the United States, because everyone else seems to agree that they should be treated in the emergency room if they arrive there and they can't prove that they're citizens of the United States.
Well, I mean, I think there's like a reasonable exception for the emergency room, like, a guy's about to die. Fair enough, right? But I come at it from a more philosophical point of view of, well, what makes the systems that we live under that we think are good systems legitimate? And I think that illegal immigration undermines those systems.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think anybody here is like arguing like, hey, let's get more illegal immigrants in. Let's try to speed up illegal immigration. So, I mean, is that a conversation you want to have? Like,
It does seem to me that Dev's, I think, more anti-immigration, illegal immigration, at least, than I am. But I don't know. There is kind of two angles here, right? Dev, I mean, it does seem like you're taking this more into like the kind of idea of state sovereignty. Well, for me, it's fucking expensive, right? Like, this has been tried. California's did this. It cost them over $8 billion. It was in excess of $3 billion more than they expected it to be. It led to a budget shortfall. They had to quickly go back and take a whole bunch more money out of the Medicaid system and raise funds in order to cover that shortfall. It doesn't actually reduce ER visits. In Oregon, for example, when they expanded Medicaid coverage, it increased it by 40%, because a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't just go to the ER for basic treatment, they do, because now they have coverage for the ER and they can just walk into the ER and get treatment, which a lot of people do. So it doesn't seem to actually be like an efficient use of resources, especially again for a population that, to Dev's point, kind of broke the law to be here and also aren't paying into Medicare and Medicaid, usually because they're working under the table. Like, it seems a little bit unfair for them to get the free services that, I mean, generally, I'm not even in favor of universal health care, but it seems unfair to me that they're getting the free services, especially when they're not even the ones paying for it at all, right?
Yeah. See, I'm actually in favor of universal healthcare paid for by taxes, but I understand that should be limited to citizens. Like, you can't have people who don't pay into the system come in and then use that system. I'm a Canadian, and so we have a universal healthcare system, and it's actually not bad. There's some problems with it, but it's not bad. But I also understand that, like, if we doubled Canada's population with a bunch of, let's say, 40-year-old adults who didn't even pay into the system for the first half of their life, it would destroy our system. You need some level of a walled garden to do this sort of thing, and I think this sort of thing is good. So if I had to choose, I would choose universal healthcare over immigration.
Well,
The- Oh, sorry.
when it comes to the Democratic thing that kind of inspired this again, I think Lactoid earlier suggested that like all of them were arguing for basically a universal like Medicare for all system. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I understand like Pete Buttigieg's plan was not like that. His plan I think it was famously the Medicare for those who want it kind of deal. And like that was so that would hit when he raises his hand. He's saying I would allow illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants rather. And there's even a lot of debate about who even qualifies as an illegal immigrant at this moment in time. But he's arguing that they should have access to that marketplace, and I don't necessarily have any problems with that. Do you, Lactoid? Like them being able to buy into a marketplace if they're not receiving like free healthcare, they're actually paying into a system like to buy health insurance. I know Dev obviously wouldn't agree because he would say, well, no, they need to be deported immediately. But
Just okay. Good. Your camera fixed. I was gonna warn you that your camera was broke, but it's fixed. And $5 to tell you to put your gloves on, Radical Coder. But if you want to respond to that, you can. And I know Fatty was trying to say something too. So
Okay. I don't know what the glove reference is, but um, I mean, I'll right now as we're talking. I didn't read the very specifics of Pete Buttigieg's policy. I'll look into that just very quickly. I'm incredibly skeptical that it does not involve public funding for illegal immigrants. In 2019, when everybody raises their hand when they say, "Does your health plan does it include undocumented immigrants?" Which they're what they mean by that is illegal immigrants, right? I don't want to play games with that. That's what people are referring to when they're talking about undocumented immigrants. And they all raised their hand. They were referring to government, like, and at least the audience, definitely the audience understood it to be, and everybody else who was going to vote for them understood it to be, that they were referring to government healthcare. So I agree. There's probably a huge range of like kind of their ideas. Right, you've got Kamala Harris on one end who's talking about sex change operations for illegal immigration or illegal immigrants. I'm convinced that not everybody on that stage wanted that. There's probably a lot of them there that didn't. That's reasonable, but I'm skeptical that Pete Buttigieg's position is no, the illegals can buy healthcare in the private market, but they're not going to get any Medicaid, any government assistance. They're not going to get any of that. Is that really his plan?
well, like I said, I believe Pete was the one who had the Medicare for all who want it, right? So the idea would be that people could buy into a public option. So it's not that they're getting free healthcare; it's that they have the option to buy into a government subsidized one.
Yeah, is that subsidized though? Is the healthcare that they're buying subsidized?
Well, it would be I mean, in theory, it would be Medicare for all. So isn't Medicare like by definition subsidized?
Yeah, so they're buying into a subsidized. They're getting government money for healthcare.
Yes. Don't these illegals actually pay taxes the same way they are paid below the table? Like, isn't that like a stat that says that they actually have a bunch of fake social security numbers and they have a tremendous influx, like billions of dollars that they actually pay to the system, but they don't get nothing in return from it because the social security numbers are not there? Is this incorrect?
The ones that are committing fraud by stealing social security numbers and using those, they're probably paying something in. There's a large segment that aren't. That if they're working entirely under the table, because they're paying sales taxes when they buy stuff, but they're not paying Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security.
Yes. So my problem with this conversation is that these people are not just coming here illegally and getting jobs illegally. There are billionaires and politicians and the president of the United States that are actually very happy with this situation. Like, these companies are actually giving fake social security numbers. These workers, like the people that are hired them, know exactly what's going on, and nobody finds these companies. Nobody locks up these billionaires. Nobody is giving pushback to the lobbies that are actually pushing these people to actually get the job that they get. So if we are against a tax-paying system that is going to subsidize these people healthcare, I think if the hotel industry and the agriculture industry are some of the biggest beneficiaries and the construction industry do that too, I think all these billionaires that benefit tremendously from them being here, I think they can spare a couple of $1 billion to actually take care of the healthcare from them. The money has to come from somewhere. Make the people that benefit the most from them pay their healthcare and pay whatever they have going on so they can keep the same employees that they don't want to send to the other side of the border.
Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this. Like, it seems like you're insinuating that you need to have an absolutist position on illegal immigration, like some kind of maximal enforcement. You're bringing up the fact that they're not finding these companies or they're not like rating these companies enough. Which, I mean, if you want to say that Trump's not going hard enough on immigration enforcement, that's a position, I guess.
That's not what I said. Don't mischaracterize me. Are you okay with maximum enforcement, sending these people back to Mexico, Guatemala, whatever the country they came from?
I'm not a huge fan of like spending a bunch of money on enforcement, but that doesn't mean we have to pay for their health care.
No. That was not my question. These people come to your border. The president is getting very specific niches of police enforcement, IRS, whatever, and he's putting these funds on ICE, patrol border, all these, right? Are you okay with the president using every single method he can and go in on the people that are trying to cross the border illegally? Are you okay with that?
No,
No?
no, not every single method. No.
Nothing is everything. I'm not talking about putting people in cages and gas them or something like that. I'm talking about deploying the necessary force and the necessary agents and the necessary funds to make sure the border is secure and these people don't cross the border. Are you okay with that? It's a sensible question.
Look, I'm okay with some level of sensible border. You're talking about like a sensible level of border enforcement, sure.
Yes.
But there's a huge range there. There are some people who believe, like, and we've had them on this very debate channel, Wick, you know who I'm talking about. There are some people who genuinely want drones deployed and drone bombing people who are trying to cross the border. I think that's too extreme. I think that's, even though theoretically this could happen, no, like that's way too far. I'm okay with
Yeah.
like some level of modest border enforcement, but again, I don't have to want like some kind of very heavy-handed border enforcement to say, well, we can have like pretty moderate border enforcement and not pay illegal immigrants health care, because not only are we spending money to do that, extra money, but that's also an incentive to come into America illegally if you can get free health care out of it, right? Wouldn't you be more willing to risk the dangers of crossing the border if you get free health care?
Because ironically, most of these countries actually have affordable healthcare and universal healthcare on their countries. So they are actually living in a country that already has that structure to come on the country that actually don't. Is the irony about this conversation is you're funding, for example, Argentina and Israel, and both of those countries has a far more universal healthcare where people don't go bankrupt if they have cancer or heart attack, right? So if you have this is what I'm saying, right? For example, if you have enough funds and enough agents to actually do the physical job, in my opinion, which is the most important and more difficult, you definitely have a couple of agents from the IRS or whatever force you want to deploy that go to these billionaires, they go to these billion-dollar companies, that go to these type of industries and make sure that they actually either make sure that they don't hire them, so they don't have an incentive, like you say, to actually come on the United States and work on the same industry their cousin is working, and they call them back to Guatemala and says, "Hey man, I'm building some houses, or I'm here on this hotel, or I'm here on agriculture picking some oranges, and you can come in because these guys are hiring us, or you can actually find and make these companies and this business subsidize the healthcare of these people because they're the biggest beneficiaries of it." And I'll complete and include this. Even Donald Trump wants it. He made a speech about a couple of months ago. People forget about it. The farmers and the people from the hotel industry were complaining about it. We are not going to afford keeping these farms and these hotels if you don't let them come in. And he literally said, I'm listening to them. I want to pass an executive order to actually help them keep it. So if you are going to do it, you have to find a way of actually take care of them, because it's not their only. It's not their
Okay.
health that is at stake.
I want to address
It's
two things here.
your health too, because disease don't check passports. They don't like, oh, you have American passport. Okay, I'll skip
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you address those two things, but then I have one super chat for Dev, and I want to get other people in on the mix. So go
Sure.
ahead, address, and then I'll get some people in the mix.
Yeah, so I guess the first response was to other countries having like more affordable healthcare or better healthcare. Illegal immigration historically primarily has come from Mexico. Now we're seeing a lot coming from like places like Haiti or Central America. Our healthcare is better than these places. I'm sorry, like we can go over the numbers on that. It just is better. There obviously is this incentive to, if you're getting free healthcare, there's obviously this incentive to come into the country from a country that has a worse healthcare system like Mexico or especially Haiti. I mean, Haiti's barely even a state at this point in terms of having some kind of organized statehood. It is just basically in civil war. There absolutely this would be a massive incentive. Firstly, secondly, I just take the rest of the point honestly. It's a little bit incomprehensible or inconsistent and very. You seem to have this assumption that in order to say, hey, we shouldn't give these people money to buy something. Well, what about this? Lactoid. What about why aren't you doing this instead? You could spend the money here. Why aren't you going harder on this? If you can afford to hire this many border agents, then surely you can afford health care for illegal immigrants. Why aren't you enforcing rules against businesses more? None of this has to do with the actual prompt of discussing is giving people health care like as a policy, standalone policy. Does it make sense? Is it good? Does it have good outcomes? Does it violate principles, et cetera, et cetera? And the easy out to this is, okay, well, if you're arguing for greater enforcement against illegal immigration in other ways, which, by the way, Dev here is doing, everything that you said, I'm sure Dev would probably say, yeah, we should do that too. Yes, we should go after the businesses. Yeah, there you go. That's an easy answer. It's sort of like weird whataboutism of, hey, you lent me $20 last week. Surely you can lend me $10 this week. No, I gave you $20 last week. I don't have $10 to give you right now. Like, there's no reason why I'm going to give you $10 right now.
Okay.
It's interesting that you mischaracterize both of my points. Again, it probably is the thick accent, but if I look at what I said, and I literally said, responding to you is an incentive to give free healthcare to these people, because if they know the United States have free healthcare, they have an incentive to go there. What I said is most of these countries already have free healthcare in their countries.
Yeah, but it's
so
shit.
The United States having free healthcare is not now that they already have it. So that's not an incentive.
You think free Haitian healthcare is good?
Let's go with no.
Okay, so there still is an incentive then, even if it's free in Haiti, to come to America.
Okay, so now you're using, what is the percentage of Asians that actually come illegal immigration? If you actually talk of the bulk of the numbers of all these countries from South America and the middle of the continent,
So,
like, is that a big percentage?
Well,
I can actually give you the number.
Yeah, sure. You can look. Yeah, I know. Recently, it's been higher percentages. I think they're the fastest growing group right now. I know that historically it's been from Mexico, which, by the way, has also a worse healthcare system than us. Like, you seem to indicate that, like, well, it's free, and America, if we give them free, therefore there's no incentive to cross. But in America, it's good. Like, it'd be free and good healthcare.
A couple points. So first of all, $5 from Derlamagir. I'm sorry, buddy. I don't know how to say your name. Derlamagir, something like that. Says, question for Dev. With your statement on universal health care, how do you feel about the legal, quote-unquote, Indian immigration into Canada, which is straining it?
I think there's probably too much right now, but that's more of a practical question of, well, how much immigration can a country actually take before it starts to have problems? That's not getting at the underlying point of illegal immigration just being blanket against the law and therefore bad.
Okay.
So I think Canada's probably taken too many immigrants, but I'm not someone who wants to go down to like zero legal immigration. I think that's fucking insane. We've probably taken too many recently. We probably cut back for a while, but I think that's like a practical concern, not like any sort of moral one.
Okay, and a question for Radical Coder, to kind of maybe get you back in the mix here, get a little more people getting some back and forth and things like that. What is your strongest argument for giving or allowing illegal immigrants to benefit from something like Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare for all, some sort of program in which the government does subsidize some of their healthcare benefits?
Well, I would say, I mean, it starts with the fact that, as we seem to all agree, at least, we should treat people at the ER. So that is when health concerns have reached their
Should the government
conclusion.
should the government subsidize that? Like, so an illegal immigrant
Oh,
comes in,
for ER treatment, yeah,
they've been
I mean, for
stabbed
sure.
like 20 times, and they're bleeding out, and the ER covers them, and then figures out, oh, this guy's broke and he's an illegal immigrant. Should the government reimburse that hospital?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely. I mean, because why would we punish the hospital for like a shortcoming of like some individual? Like, I mean, it's federally required that they treat them, right? So perhaps we could argue about whether or not we should overturn EMTALA and make it so you don't have to treat someone if they don't prove documentation or whatever. But like, if they have to treat them, then it seems reasonable that they should be like it's like
Does anyone disagree with
reimbursed for
that
it.
here?
This is the one. This is like the one form of treatment that I think everybody in the panel has already
Okay,
agreed that
so
we'd have to have.
to be clear, not just the treatment, but the government reimbursing the hospital for giving that treatment.
I think that's fine. Yeah,
And
yeah.
because
I
something
put-
so,
I would
really
put it in the
if
same
they can't
bucket
recover
as,
Hold on, just Dev, then Lactoid. Go
so
ahead.
I put that sort of thing in the same bucket
Really?
as like police service and fire services. You know, you're dealing with emergencies; it should just be funded. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
How I would put it is, if the hospital can't like reasonably recoup the money from the person they treated, then perhaps you'd have to have the government reimburse the medical provider.
Okay, so
Just a
beyond
quick
that,
point of
radical coder. Beyond that,
Can-
what other
Damn it.
services do you want the government to reimburse hospitals or clinics or service providers for giving to people who are illegal immigrants? Go ahead.
Well, just one bookend to that last point, because my understanding is the big beautiful bill actually does reduce those subsidies or makes it harder for those hospitals to get those. I don't know the exact details on that, but that's my understanding of that. But I would say that the reason I brought up the emergency care first is because this is the most expensive point for someone to get health care, right? Without preventative care, then eventually shit starts going wrong, and you end up in the hospital in an emergency room being treated with your maximized health damages, right? So if there's some, I mean, Lactoid mentioned that apparently in some areas that expanding like access to preventative care or insurance rather did increase people going to the emergency room. I don't know that's necessarily a flaw in like giving people access to insurance inherently, as much as maybe like trying to create better incentives for people to go more regularly. But I would say that if we as taxpayers are already paying for these people who are getting emergency room care, it would probably be cheaper to do preventative care in the long run. At least that seems to be what most my understanding is that's been like carried out. Like preventive care is almost always a cheaper option than just emergency room when things have absolutely hit the fan.
No.
It's cheaper to take heart medication than to get a new heart.
Yeah, just to be clear for your argument, then, that you say that we should expand access for illegal immigrants to preventative care, not just emergency care, because in the long run, according to you, it will reduce costs.
Well, I guess what I would like to be more clear, what I want to be open to is allowing states to do that more, like to experiment with that.
Sure.
And this is my issue with the Big Beautiful Bill, which is trying to kind of micromanage whether or not these states have the ability to experiment with that, because it might be the case that at the end of the day, it actually ends up costing way more, and maybe we need to choose a different approach if we're taking a fiscal, just a fiscal-minded approach to this at all, or as the primary dimension. But
Well, I have a question.
like the
Well,
only
that's
way
what
to find that
happened,
out is to test it.
California tested
I
it.
want to let Lactoid go, and then want to let Dev go. Dev has a question, and then Fatty, if you want in too, then feel free. But go ahead, Lactoid,
Yeah.
then Dev, then Fatty if he wants.
So overall, emergency room as a percentage of overall healthcare costs is a relatively small percent, somewhere between 3 and 5%. So emergency room, even though you're right that at the point of service, if you compare like an hour in the emergency room compared to like an hour in other services, like per hour, it's going to be more than perhaps other services. But in terms of overall spending, It's a very small single-digit percentage. In terms of the states that have expanded healthcare coverage to illegals, like in California, it resulted in massively increased healthcare costs. It didn't result in this sort of this cost-saving effect that you're describing. Even if it did reduce emergency room visits, it would still cost more because 95 to 97% of healthcare expenses had nothing to do with emergency room. And then Oregon, I got one study from Oregon as well. When Oregon expanded Medicaid coverage to a larger group of people, there was a study that tracked this specific group of people's like low income usage of emergency rooms, and it went up 40%. Because not only then are people going to go to the hospital for all the other kinds of healthcare, they're going to be more likely to go to the emergency room even for non-urgent situations. Right? If you walk into any emergency room, yes, occasionally you have the person who is wheeled in, who's got a bullet hole, right? The crazy situation, sure, but most of the time it's not that. Most of the time, it's some kind of sickness, flu, etc. Most of the time, it's somebody showing up to something that could be a clinic. Oftentimes, hospitals will combine their urgent cares with their emergency rooms, specifically for this reason that a lot of people will just show up for emergency visits that really aren't. So it empirically leads to more use. Even if it didn't, it would still cost more. This idea that it saves money just doesn't. It's not empirically borne out in the data.
Well,
Response
just
to
to
that if
add,
you want, and then Dev. Yeah.
Yeah. My understanding with EMTALA specifically is that the requirement is when somebody shows up in the emergency room that you have to stabilize them. So there might be a lot of different reasons that people go to the emergency room, and like you said, they might be more likely to go to the emergency room, and perhaps costs might go up for that. And these are for we're talking about. I assume you're referring to citizens. I believe you were. So like we don't have the specifics of like this separate group cohort, I guess. But as far as the emergency room measures for illegal immigrants, it's just about being stabilized at the moment. So it's kind of hard to compare or kind of hard to establish whether or not they are going to end up showing up for other reasons. I mean, especially not right now, because they would probably expect to get deported if they show up for something that's not like an immediate like life or death situation.
Sure, but again, if you don't want to talk about Oregon, we can talk about California, which implemented this program where they expanded Medicaid to illegal immigrants, the very population we're talking about, and their healthcare costs went up $8 billion, $3 billion in excess of what they predicted. If you're saying it's going to save money, why didn't they make money off of it? Why didn't they get more of a surplus?
Well, I don't know what else. I don't know what else you're saying. They expanded it to illegal immigrants. I imagine they made many other changes, right? It probably wasn't I imagine the only dial they were turning was not allow illegal immigrants to buy into this, and now the cost all skyrocketed. I imagine they were doing other things. I'm not super familiar with Oregon's particular healthcare policies, but I mean, are you saying that it was purely because they expanded it to illegal immigrants that they went up by that much? Or?
I'm saying that every analysis that I was able to find showed that California implemented this expanded coverage, Medicaid coverage to illegal immigrants, and then immediately afterwards, this led to massively increased use. I mean, the state is spending over $8 billion specifically on illegal immigrants in terms of their health care. This was $3 billion more in excess than they had planned for, and it led to a budget crisis, and they had to quickly get money in order to cover the shortfall. This is empirically what happened. If we're going to say...
So, yeah, I mean, I might acknowledge that what you just said is true. You said that they expanded access and then immediately these costs went up, but what you're not elaborating on is what else changed there.
No, right. But the $8 billion,
the sequence might be correct.
No, it's not just the sequence. The $8 billion was specifically attributed to illegal immigrants. Like that's what the illegal immigrants are using. They're over $8 billion, which was again was $3 billion
in Oregon specifically.
No, in California. Oregon was the study that indicated that when you expand Medicaid coverage to a group of people that otherwise wouldn't have it, I don't think they were illegal immigrants in Oregon. But when you expanded it, it actually led to that cohort going to the emergency room more often because now they have coverage. Hey, we can go to the emergency room.
Okay, Dev, you had
a question?
On
that for a second while Dev.
Sure.
Yeah, my argument isn't really an economic argument because I'm not a libertarian. I'm completely fine with taxing and spending. Some things are costly, and you should spend the money. I'm not against that. But for me, it's just like, why are illegal immigrants entitled to services of state anyway? They're illegal immigrants. We all agree on the emergency stuff. Fair enough. When it comes to just regular doctor visits, why shouldn't they just be deported? Why mess with this?
I mean, I'd fly with you, but I'm on your team, so I...
I mean, personally, I guess we're just going to turn this into like a immigration debate if we go that angle, like broadly. But I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, we might just be like a values judgment. Like I value like people having a pathway to citizenship more so than I do like just throwing them out of the country. But I mean, if that seems to be where Trump's at least, and it's at least his way of doing it seems to be pretty unpopular. So. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, see, I don't like some of the things that Trump has done, but I'm not blanket anti-deporting people, right? Like I do think that if you're an illegal immigrant, you should be deported. I think Trump's doing it like terribly. I think I think he's breaking a lot of laws and norms in the Constitution to do so. But the core idea of, is it a good thing to deport an illegal immigrant when you know he is an illegal and he's gone through the pathway, and it's like, okay, you're not actually a real asylum seeker, you're going home. Is that a good thing? I think it just is.
Do you have a
Sorry,
response?
my headphone just died.
Oh, great, wonderful. We got.
I have a quick response.
Wait,
How
Buddy,
is Trump breaking the Constitution?
Oh man, I wasn't prepared for that part of the debate. I didn't look up that part of it. I had that debate like a month ago. I have to go back and get my notes. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, while he gets while he does that, hopefully your headphones are back in the mix.
yeah.
And hopefully Fatty's here to stay, and hopefully we can get some more.
But he keeps
more
abandoning me.
responses in here. Yeah. Go ahead, Radical Coder, and then I'll pass the mic to Fatty if he has a response to anything that's been said.
Yeah. So I guess again, we are definitely paying at the point that people have these health emergencies. You're saying in California, at least, they again, I don't know what else they changed at that point. That's the argument I was kind of making. Like, but you're saying it's directly attributed to illegal immigrants are increasing it by 8 billion. I mean, I guess that's possible. I'd be interested to see like that breakdown. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, like we are definitely paying for these people's healthcare at some point. Maybe the cheapest option is letting them just wait until it's an emergency.
Right.
Maybe that's a more fiscally responsible path. But then I would press a separate angle, which is the more humane path. And I don't think it is. I don't think like preventing someone from having access to a doctor, even if it's because we want to punish them and show them how wrong it was for them to either arrive in the country illegally or overstay their visa or whatever it was. I don't think that like to make that statement we should like refuse them access to care that might prevent them from winding up in the emergency room in the first place. Like that seems I mean I would extend that to US citizens obviously. But that's a
well how about this? Like, do you think it's ever reasonable to deport an illegal immigrant?
Sure. Yeah, especially the like violent criminals and stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what about the ones who aren't violent?
I think that if they're like here not breaking any laws, they're just working, like then we should potentially offer them a pathway to citizenship as long as they're like abiding by the rules of the nation and stuff. I don't see that as like a terrible process.
Okay, but why?
Because they're here, they're working, they're contributing to our economy, they're our neighbors, they live amongst us. I mean it just seems like why not?
Well, they did break the law to come in, right? Like that's still they started off on the wrong foot. I'm not talking about people who are like there's what did Obama call it, like DACA, where it's like a child who was brought in by their parents and then they grew up in the States and they weren't citizens, they didn't know. I understand instances like that. I'm talking about the person who hops the border, who never tries to become a citizen, who never goes down the pathway, and then just works under the table for like 20 years. Why shouldn't you send that guy home?
I mean, again, because they've been living here, not causing any problems for 20 years. Like, it seems like unnecessary to like throw them in a truck and like send them back to Mexico after they've been here for so long, like working and living here. It seems like kind of inhumane, to be honest.
Is that not still an infraction, hopping the border and not actually going through the process?
I mean, I'm not saying it's not. Like, yeah, sure.
Okay, well then, what do you think?
But like hang on, does the punishment? Why does the punishment have to be sending them to Mexico or sending them back to wherever, sending them to CCOT as Trump is doing?
I don't like that. I don't like the whole where they all go into like El Salvador and it's like a fucking prison camp. I don't agree with that shit. I don't agree with that at all. But if you have a system set up where someone can skirt the rules, and if they just make it long enough, then they just get let in anyway, that's a much easier thing to attempt to do than to immigrate the proper way. So now you're incentivizing going through this illegal route, and you don't want to do that. You want people to come in through the proper channels.
Is my
And I
audio
agree,
good
it's
now?
better
Sorry for
when
interrupting you. Is it good now?
Yes, your audio's fine, Fatty. Your audio's been fine. If you have some stuff to say, Fatty, now's the time. I'm gonna give you the mic.
Yeah,
I have some questions for Dev now, but we'll get to that in a second. Go ahead, Fatty.
absolutely. So the thing about these families is that they a lot of times are mixed families. The same illegal immigrant that is living in a house, and we know that a lot of these people are communal, so they share houses together, right? Because there's like you are not going to treat the kid that is sick and then leave him to actually be infected by the three people in the same house that are undocumented. So now they don't have access to nothing. So the kid gets sick by default because we all know, for example, when our kids go to school in September or August, everybody gets sick in the home. That's what happens for the most part. If the kid gets sick, he gets home, and now everybody in the house gets sick. So it kind of, and what Ryan said, the preventive thing about actually giving these people access to healthcare makes it that you are not trying to just be logical, right? By saying this person is illegal, he was a anchor baby, was whatever going on, so he has the documents or he's actually eligible. So you're giving him all the treatment, and then you are sending him home to a potential health risk because everybody in that house that is not legal and doesn't have access to health care is actually touching, playing with the kid, eating with the same forks and knives and all that. So I think that's a little bit counterproductive in my opinion.
Any responses to that? Otherwise, I have a couple questions for Blackwood and Dev. Okay. To Dev, first of all, um, you mentioned about wanting to deport people who've been in here 20 years, have done nothing wrong other than entering the country illegally. After that, they've broken no laws. They're a contributing member of society. They hold down a job. They pay into the taxes and things like that as much as they can. What benefit does it give the country to deport someone like that? Like, what good is done?
You maintain the integrity of your sovereignty.
I guess
What
I
wasn't the
suppose.
sovereignty already broken as soon as the people actually enter in your country?
Yes, that's why you have to deport them. As soon as you find out who they are, it's like, oh no, you are in fact the problem. You have to go. Yes.
Do you think that the maintaining of sovereignty outweighs the costs of deporting and also disrupting the economy and disrupting the social circles that will be removed by removing this guy? I guess it's the same thing of like,
The answer to that is yes. You don't have a liberal democracy without some sort of foundational principle like that.
let me kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. Like, we all agree that stealing is wrong. You shouldn't steal. Stealing is a crime. And if we find out you've stolen, you should be punished. However, we do have a concept in the legal system called the statute of limitations, meaning that if we found out you stole a candy bar from a liquor store 20 years ago, we probably won't prosecute you.
It's not
that,
for ongoing crimes, though.
right?
Yeah,
Well,
and well, yeah, the fact that he's hung around for 20 years and not even tried to do any sort of naturalization process, that does make it an ongoing crime. Yeah.
so if they are going through the process, you don't think we should deport them?
Yes.
Like, so they come in here, they get in here, they start the process of becoming a legal citizen, like a pathway to citizenship. We've had several things like that. You don't think we should deport them as long as they're going through the process? Because the process can take 10,
it can take
15
time.
years,
Yes.
right?
Well, this is why I object to the way that Trump is doing it, right? Because Trump is showing up to people who they have court cases scheduled for asylum hearings, and ICE is like arresting them at the fucking courthouse. Like that's insane. That's ridiculous. Like these are people who are actually engaging with the process in good faith, and they're allowing it to play out. And then we should let that process play out. And if it turns out they get rejected, then they go home, and that's that. Like, I'm not anti-legal immigration at all, right? It's just that I do want whatever process is in place to be respected, and part of that means that you must enforce the negative half of that. When it turns out the person has to go home, they have to go home.
Okay. Question for Fatty and Radical Coder now. When would you be okay providing emergency care to illegal immigrants, but after that care is given, for them to be deported. Like, so we will pay for their treatment, right? If they need it, we will provide the money to get them better, but they will be deported after they do that. Would that be something you'd be okay with?
It's another counterproductive measure because now you are making that illegal afraid of going to the hospital because he knows as soon as he gets treated, he's going to be deported. So he's not going to the hospital. Whatever pimples he has on his dick or whatever pus is coming out of his ear is going to infect everybody at the workplace. He's going to infect everybody at home. He's going to infect the people that he has been sex with because he knows as soon as he puts his foot on the hospital, the bill is taken care of, but he has a plane and a sheriff ready to actually put him back where he came from. So it's counterproductive. Either you treat them and you make sure that society is safe, or you spook them away. And now, not only these people leave their loved ones here, but they now are afraid of going to the doctor, which is for a lot of people what actually gets them out of here from this planet is not going early when you have the early symptoms.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that. Like, I think the biggest issue is going to be, I mean, well, number one, I don't, I think in some cases, I mean, I'm fine with deportation, especially for like violent criminals and stuff. And I might be convinced to expand that, but we'd have to get into like the weeds. But like in general, I think that is a major concern. Like that, like somebody, I mean, these people could just like end up like dying because they don't feel like they don't want, they're scared to get deported, and so they're like, well, I'm not gonna, maybe I can power through this, and I don't think that's a better world.
Okay. I'm still waiting, honestly. I'm still waiting for the strong argument to expand healthcare for illegal immigrants. I think we've all decided, right? I think everyone's okay with emergency care, but why?
So,
Why
so
should
the
why should they
arg-
be able to get like why should they be able to go to the clinic to get an eye exam or something on our
yeah,
dime?
but the argument is there is because if they don't get it, right? If they don't get it, you are actually arming the fabric of society. These people are not isolated. These people literally are working. Like as soon as you have your debate convention and you go to that hotel in Las Vegas or wherever is going on, these people are going to fold in your sheets. They are going to be actually putting your pillows on, like the covers on the pillows. They are going to be serving you food. Like we know that the hotel industry is literally run by these people, the same people that are cutting tomatoes and are putting tomatoes with their hands in your dish. You are going to be in danger too. So the problem,
Well,
in my
frankly, I
opinion, is
only
not
eat
even
processed foods that are grown at a lab. Okay, nothing natural goes into my body, so
absolutely,
fair
Vic,
enough.
but
Go ahead.
you are a
Yes.
wizard, right? You summon your food, right?
True.
Regular people they really sometimes they go to supermarkets and they go to the food court. You see what I'm saying? For the most part, I don't think I'm going to be very honest. Is envy is like righteous envy. See what I'm saying? It's justifiable envy. Most of Americans don't have universal health care. So why should these fuckers have it? If most of people in America actually, or most everybody, because it's universal health care, had their health actually treated, and they wouldn't go bankrupt or they wouldn't be not covered in any certain type of circumstance, I think the sentiment and the spirit would be, we are safe. Let's take care of these little people that come in over here because if they get sick, we're going to get sick too. But for the most part, I think is we don't have it, and because we've been fighting for I don't know how many years into a policy that is actually popular in both sides of the aisle, right? We don't have it; they are not going to have it too. I think the is more of a first, like what is the chicken and the egg? I think because the Americans don't have the egg, they don't want to give the chicken to Mexicans and Guatemalans and people that are actually coming from the border.
Well, I guess lactoid, right? You read the study about California. I will just cede to you that it increased costs. Fair enough, but did it make the population as a whole healthier? And so the argument would be,
I mean,
even if it
probably.
does increase costs, if, as Fatty is alluding to, the population as a whole, illegal and legal, is healthier,
Yeah.
is that a trade-off we're willing to take?
So, I mean, for the analyses show that it costs a lot more money. When you think about it, this is like obviously the case as well. When only 3 to 5%, like just think about this intuitively for a second. When 3 to 5% of healthcare costs are emergency room care, when you expand healthcare coverage beyond that, you're going to get increased medical costs. Now, you're saying more people going to the hospital. This would obviously mean that you go to the hospital when you're sick. You're going to get more.
Intuitively, it would.
For
I
sure.
don't have data on it. I'm just
No,
asking.
look, I'm willing to just grant it. I'm not going to sit here and make the argument that all the people going to the hospital are somehow like less healthy. I also don't know the exact numbers on that. I haven't seen any numbers that shows like any kind of significant increase in infectious diseases from people who chop tomatoes or like prepare food associated with the increase in health coverage for illegal immigrants. I haven't seen that. I'm highly skeptical of that. I mean, we're talking about, I think, a pretty small percentage of like the economy in that specific role, like immediate food preparers to begin with. And then we're also controlling for a smaller population, and we're controlling for like the kind of infectious diseases that could be prevented by going to a hospital, which is already cutting out the vast majority of them, right? The flu, the cold. You're not going to prevent these kind of illnesses by going to the hospital. They're viruses. You have to wait them out, right? Hot soup and plenty of water. I mean, look, if they're coming at this with a value statement of just like, yes, we should spend money on this because illegal immigrants are human and we want them to like be healthier. I mean, that's again kind of like Radical Coder just said. That is a sort of like base level value statement that I just disagree with. He just asserts that like his valuing of making sure that this is a free service for illegal immigrants, so they get more health care, that this is worth the money, or it's worth, what my opinion is, taking money from taxpayers and funding it. Really, my main disagreements with what he said before was, I mean, besides, I don't know how useful it is to really quabble over the value kind of level disagreements, because I don't think we're going to make any headway. I was just mostly challenging him on the empirical disagreements. But I actually disagree. I know Dev's on my side. I disagree a lot with a lot of the stuff Dev has said. He's right, by the way, on the statute of limitations thing that you brought up. It wouldn't count because the crime is ongoing, right? They are continuing to be in the country in violation of the law. But, I mean, I don't know if you want me to challenge Dev on this. I know this is...
You can if you want, but I do have another.
I'm okay. Listen, Lactoid, I already know that we don't align on anything anyway, so it's completely fine. Whoa. It just so happens that we're on the same team this one time for this one conversation.
That's fair.
It's funny that you both had different exclamations when you found out who your teammate is.
That's funny.
It was interesting. But I do want to ask to Radical Coder before I'll let you challenge Dev if you like. Yeah. Is this just a value question? Like, these people are humans. They deserve some sort of care. If the government can't provide it, then that is something we should do. Is that kind of what you're going
potentially?
with?
I would say that yes, for any sort of like universal healthcare program. Like I believe, so Bernie, for example, his plan
whatever
was
program you want. I'm not asking for Bernie's or Buttigieg or anyone. I'm saying you, Radical Coder. What do you?
Well, I mean, I don't. Hey, I have maybe concepts of a plan, if you will. But I don't know that I have like a deeply detailed, like precise healthcare plan. I want to expand people's access to healthcare. Right, that's my goal, and whatever ways that we do that are negotiable. Right. But this is why I mean, again, this was instigated by people raising their hands saying that it would include undocumented immigrants in their healthcare plan, which for many of them, or at least for Pete, I believe, meant that they would have access to purchase into health insurance programs. So before we get into, because if we're going to expand, like if we're going to have national universal health care, then, maybe I would say, yeah, let's include all residents under that. I think that'll be a good thing, but we don't even have that. So like, do I have to argue like to expand the U.S. medical system to have universal health care, but like to even have the argument about giving that to undocumented immigrants? Sure. Like I want them to have access to insurance. I want them to be able to buy into the system at least.
So the argument is that whatever benefits or what opportunities that residents have, illegal immigrants should have the same opportunity. So if it's the ability to buy insurance. Well, I guess, Dev, do you think an illegal immigrant should be able to buy into medical insurance in America?
I mean, private insurance it's the same as an
Yeah,
illegal
private
immigrant
insurance.
buying
They just
any private product, right? Like they should be
Exactly.
sent home, but as long as they're ducking the law, they can buy whatever they want. It's the same as anyone else.
and if the government were to provide an option, you don't think that they should have access to that option then?
No, I don't think so.
So
I don't. I
even if they're
think definitionally, illegal immigrants are not entitled to services of state. Yes.
okay, just want to make sure that we are in. Okay, if you
Actually,
want
here's kind of a funny, wacky hypothetical for you, radical coder. Let's say hypothetically we deported every single illegal immigrant, but you knew with absolute certainty they would get universal health care in their home country. Would you be okay with deporting them?
I don't think the only reason that immigrants come here is for healthcare. So
Yeah, obviously, I'm just
No?
taking the piss. Yeah, yeah.
No,
So
I
like
don't think so.
when
No.
Whick you pitched this to me, there was like kind of two questions that we could tease out from the initial pitch, and one of them is, are illegal immigrants entitled to services of state? I just say no, they're not, because they're legal immigrants. You know, people who are citizens who come to the states legally, or any country legally, they are entitled to services of state. Legal immigrants are not, just definitionally, right? The second half of it, though, is that old leftist question: is healthcare a human right? And I know that universal healthcare is a pretty good thing to have, and I'm okay with taxpayer funding it. I'm okay with that sort of SOCDEM policy, right? But is healthcare a human right? Like, it just seems the answer has to be no, doesn't it?
Well,
All the
the
way.
answer is clearly yes in some degree, right? Because at least as it stands with EMTALA, you have a right to be treated if you are, you have the right to be stabilized. So that is some degree of healthcare that we've established in the United States. We treat as a right legally. So the question is, are we going to expand that or shrink it?
Well, here
And
I will just give the libertarian answer, even though I'm not a libertarian. I know the libertarian answer. It's that you have the positive negative right split, right? Like a right is not something that a government provides for you. That's a privilege. That's an entitlement.
Okay, well, this is the right in this case, right? Like what the government is preventing hospitals through fines and court cases and things like this from denying you coverage if you come in and you can't pay for it, or if you're an illegal immigrant or whatever. So I think it's a good thing that we have that. So I mean, we don't have you don't have to use the word right for that. I mean, I think it's indistinguishable from like you're being guaranteed access to that stabilizing care. Like it seems like a right by any definition. But
I just did want to say something real quick. It's clearly a human right, because if any American is in any part of the Western world and something happens to them, they are taken care of, including Canada. Somebody said they was from Canada. If you're American that overstays his visa and is in Toronto because he can, and something happens to him or he has to go to the hospital, not just the ER, go to a doctor, he's going to be treated. Happens everywhere across the planet in the Western, like we were talking about the first world country. So it's kind of ridiculous that we're trying to pretend that most of Western civilizations that are westernized have healthcare as a human right. Only the United States don't have it, not because of some type of ideological way. No, it's because you guys have legal bribes, which y'all guys call lobbying, with this big pharma coming in with a bunch of money, spreading the money around the Republicans and Democrats and making sure that nobody has universal health care, because they profit tremendously from rigging the healthcare system. So yes, it's universal health care, because the United States is not the end-all be-all. You have a bunch of countries that actually score higher in healthcare, and they have both systems. They have the system that is paid by everybody, so the poor people can actually have access to it, and then they have insurance that, to be honest, is way cheaper than whatever you guys have on the United States, and these people can go to private clinics and private hospitals and actually get the care. I pay $50 per month on my private insurance, and I can go to both to a public hospital and I can go to a private hospital and have the best care. So yes, is a human right for the most part. Only Americans, their politicians, and the companies that pay them think it's not.
just real quick.
It really seems like. Oh,
Just
go
before
ahead.
you respond, $5 from Deej Nuts to say No amount of Medicare access is going to stop you from getting a seasonal cold. Thank you for the $5. And gang, keep giving me money. Money is good. Deej, go. I'm sorry,
Keep
Dev,
giving
go.
you money.
Yeah, keep
um,
doing
Yeah,
that.
I will say
Right.
expanding healthcare coverage to illegal immigrants is likely not going to stop them from catching colds. I'll agree with that.
Dev, go ahead.
Reasonable.
I mean, when you posted that in your tweet, Wick, is healthcare a human right? I was like, oh my god, that's going to be a fucking cancerous discussion if we actually have it, because clearly healthcare is not the same type of thing as free speech or the right to self-defense, right? Like these are not in the same bucket of things, even though we both call them rights. Can we all at least agree on that?
Are you sure you disagree with me on everything, Dev? I mean, that statement right there seemed pretty reasonable. I don't know.
Yeah, but you don't have free speech.
I mean,
Oh,
we kind of
What do you mean?
Well, Dev doesn't. He's in Canada, so
Oh,
fair.
disgusting.
But the
No,
rest
no, no.
of
I
us-
actually is in a better place than Americans, to be honest, when it comes to free speech.
that's
In some
that's
ways.
another debate. We'll get into that another day.
But no, like
No,
I've
Maybe
had
under
this,
Trump,
I've had this
yeah,
debate.
we're in a more dangerous situation. Yeah.
I've had
Yes.
this debate with left-leaning people before, and like I always ask them, okay, well, you think healthcare is a human right? They say yes. Like people say like trans rights are human rights. Okay. I mean, if it's a human right, then is the government violating your rights? Because you don't have healthcare. You don't have universal healthcare in the States. So if it's a right, is the government violating your rights? And they have to say, well, yes, of course the government's violating your rights. It's like, okay, well then where do rights come from if not from the state? And usually leftists don't go down the natural end path to that, which the liberals went down with John Locke, which is that rights come from God. But we live in a secular society. God's out of politics now. So in the absence of God, where do rights come from? The answer to that has to be the state. But if rights come from the state, then the state can't violate your rights. Like you can't say, for example, that China is violating the rights of the Uyghurs as they persecute them, because the Chinese state decides what the rights of the Uyghurs are.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but there's a
the human rights conversation is a fucking cancerous way to frame healthcare, in my opinion.
if you
Well,
actually are honest about it, the problem with what you're saying is that you went back to the Sophist debate bro type of thing. Who gives the rights? Is God or is this or is that? We kind of know what rights are. We understand
Do
when
we though?
somebody violates. Well, yeah. You know why we know? You know why we know? Because conservatives been complaining about Joe Biden and a bunch of Democrats censoring content creators that was talking about C-19 and deplatform them completely, which is violation of your free speech because it's the government officials actually going after you because you're talking too much on YouTube. You literally complain about that shit 2 weeks ago because Sneeko finally got on YouTube back again because they deplatformed me because of COVID restrictions, and we
I
know
don't
for
agree
a
with you,
fact.
actually. I don't agree
So,
with
but
you.
you don't agree that, for
I
example,
don't agree that I don't agree that what a right actually is just a settled conversation and we all just kind of know it, right? I recall maybe
no, no,
it
no,
was
no.
just let me
That's
finish real quick because it was like
give
3
me
or 4 years
give me just
ago,
one second.
and
Before
Hold
you
on,
go,
hold on.
let me
Just real quick, one at a time.
It's,
Dev, finish, then Fatty.
it's
okay.
because he talk about the rights. I was talking
What
about.
did I just Fatty? I
So
just said
let-
let
let-
Dev finish.
I recall maybe
Then we'll
it was
give
it
it
was
to you.
it was 3 or 4 years ago, and the soccer, I think it was Soccer World Cup was held in Qatar, I think, and you had a bunch of Westerners go over to attend this event, and they were like waving their pride flags, and they were like pro LGBTQ, and the Qatari government cracked down on them, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? You're violating their rights!" Like, oh, hold on, in this country, in this society, in this civilization, in this culture. There are no gay rights. Gay rights are not human rights. And there's, in fact, giant swaths of the population on planet Earth that do not agree that trans rights are human rights, that don't agree that gay rights are human rights, that don't agree that women's rights are human rights. So I don't think the question of what rights are is actually settled.
So
I kind
this
of
is
agree
why
with what you're saying. I actually come at this from a similar perspective, right? Like a kind of like practical, like reality-based rights system. Like again, the rights are what are both established by the laws of the land and enforced by the laws of the land, which is why I'm saying that healthcare at some point, in some specific cases, is recognized in the United States as a government-enforced right, because the government will charge hospitals who don't treat people under and a lot of I just totally blanked on the name, even though I'm saying it all night. like they will find them or go to court with them, etc. Like this is something the state upholds and cannot be violated without consequence. So I believe that's like
Right,
what
right, yeah.
when I think about what a right is in the real world, it's something that the government is acting on to prevent it being infringed on, right?
Okay.
Yeah, see, I think I've just read too many ANCAPs because they use right in a very specific
They've rotted
way.
your brain.
And like what you're talking about
They
are like
boosted
entitlements
his
or
brain.
privileges or whatever.
Let me
No,
get
they're
some
pretty.
super
The
chats.
ANCAPs are like 90% wrong in fucking everything they ever said.
Sure.
No, they're like
I do want to.
5% wrong.
I do want to get to these super chats, and then we'll get to. I know that Lactoid wanted to challenge Dev on a couple things, and maybe we can talk about that. $5 from Purple Political Breakdown says this: if a pregnant woman whose baby is in critical condition needs care, and she's an illegal immigrant, she's not in the system, should we give her care?
The emergency room coverage that I think we all agreed with would probably apply to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I'm
$5.
also pro birthright citizenship, so that baby would be an American citizen.
And you
So
are putting
would-
him on the
By
same house
birth or
with an
conception?
So it's
illegal.
born, not if you
Yeah, like,
deport her
hold on.
before it's
No,
born.
Let me ask.
Oh
this.
shit, that's right.
Ooh,
saying-
so you're
Gotta come out as-
pro-life.
I gotta come out as
Say you
pro-life
have
now.
illegal immigrants in the country, okay, and you find out that she's 1 month pregnant. Does she get, because she's carrying an American citizen, does she get the same access to health care that an American citizen would?
Hold on, the pro-choicers would say she's not carrying an American citizen yet. So no, she doesn't.
Whoa, fair enough.
Even the pro-lifers could say like citizenship is conferred by birth, not by existence. So
Yeah.
And you
I'm just fucking around, I know.
and you literally made my initial point that you are not going to cover the mother, but you are going to cover the kid that now is an American citizen, and this kid is going to grow up in a household where he's going to infect whatever people have going on because he has the vaccines, he has all the health treatment that the access that they have. But the mama, the daddy, the uncle, and all these people are going to get sick, and they're going to spread this disease to other people. So that's literally what we're talking about. It makes no sense.
$5 from Alishness. Healthcare for citizens is not even a human right in the U.S. People would rather die on the street than the cost of an ambulance take them to the ER. Thank you for $5. $10 from Real Serious, or 100 ARS, whatever those are. Hypothetical. If two pregnant women are in equally critical condition, one is illegal and one isn't, and there are limited resources, and you can only treat one, which gets, should we prioritize one of them? Which gets the priority?
I mean, citizens, obviously, I think.
do we not have any
I think
other
just-
information?
That's the super chat.
Yeah, than the citizen.
Yeah, I mean,
those
I
are
guess like
pesos. Wick. Those are Argentine
Oh,
pesos.
fair enough. Thank you for the pesos.
He's sending back the money
I
the
think just-
Americans sent last week.
we're imagining like a pretty extreme situation that it's very unlikely to happen in reality. But I mean, if in that case, like I guess yeah, I might even yield like just like because that like we are more responsible as a nation for our citizens. That I mean, yeah, I guess if we put like a trolley problem like that, yeah.
Okay. $5 from Alishness. Specifically, in the U.S., the state does not afford us rights. Our leadership works for us. We get our rights from the Constitution and amendments. Thank you for $5.
That's a lie.
I want to give Lactoid a chance. He had some questions for Dev, and I want to.
Yeah, let me clarify. Let me clarify some
Can you
ideas.
let me reply because you took the microphone out of my hand and said Devin Fatty, and then you didn't let Fatty.
Okay,
actually.
fair enough. That's true.
And
Maddie,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
sir. So that's why I wanted to stop you. I think you said is healthcare
All right.
no, not a right. Is healthcare woman? A human right. And you talk about the First Amendment, right? Do you think do you think freedom of speech is a human right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Your human right is being infringed left and right. Like the freedom of speech, you have Donald Trump going after people that are his political opponents, journalists and all that, try to get people fired and all that, which goes against your First Amendment right. And you have Democrats that were before Donald Trump that were trying to silence people, especially because of the C-19 situation. So, like, you can have it both ways. That's what I'm saying. You can have it both ways. These rights are given to people and are taken to people by the state. And as soon as you change the paradigm, and you gave an example of the people on the Middle East that got their rainbow flag snatched, you are not infringing on those rights because rights are decided by the government. Because if it was decided by God, every people in the planet would have the same rights. You wouldn't be dependent on what frontier you are and what line on the desert you are. You will have the same rights in Canada. You will have the same rights in the United States. The people that give you the rights are the people that can give it away, and that's not God, that's the state.
I mean, if that's how you view it, then it is definitionally impossible for a government to ever actually violate your rights.
No, they can.
Well,
Absolutely.
no, because they decide what they are. Like, if the government decides what rights are, they can't violate them. They just say, "Oh, you don't have them."
Yes, they can
They're not
because
being violated. They're non-existent.
Yes, they can because they don't revoke those rights. One thing is, I give you this right, and then I say, I take this right. If I give you this right, and the public knows that this right still is in force, and I'm taking that right from you unofficially, like, for example, Guantanamo Bay, those people still have right to actually be judged and be presented in a fair trial. Just because you are violating said right doesn't mean that the right doesn't exist. The right is still there.
Fatty, in 1800s America, when black people were slaves, were they having their human rights violated?
Human rights. Thank you very much for the human first. Yes. The law of the land rights, no. Human rights, when it comes to, for example, ratification of human rights, which is a global thing, absolutely.
Who decides those human rights?
People.
Which people?
People that then do societies, and then do judges, and then do government. Right. People decide what rights you have and what rights you shouldn't.
Yeah, and the American people decided slavery would be legal.
Yes, and then they decided that slavery was not legal. We're talking about a moral point. Well, 1 second, please. We're talking about a moral point of view, not a legal point of view. So you are discussing morality. I'm discussing legality. Was it immoral? Probably. Was it legal? Absolutely.
No, hold on. That's not. I asked you. I said it was with violating the human rights. You said yes. I asked you who defines what human rights are. You said people. I asked which people, and then you went ahead and described like governments, judges, etc., which was in 1800. The American experiment, right? You had the judges and the government all was saying, yeah, slavery is legal. It's all good. You're not violating any rights here.
Yes.
So the society decided that black people were not having the human rights violated?
Human rights is not an American institution or people to decide. Human rights, I think right now, for example, are decided by the ONU or something like that. I don't know what's the OTAN. I don't know.
Okay, I want to.
Yes,
move on.
you can go back on the conversation. I'm just saying those two are not together. Human rights are not decided by the United States. The laws of the land are decided by the United States. You can once again infringe the human rights. For example, what happens in Dubai? Well, they literally have a bunch of slaves building things, and you still abide by the laws of the land, which is legal for them to have said slaves.
To be clear, that's why I think the United States should do unironic imperialism and annex every single country and stop these human rights abuses in Russia, in China, and everywhere. If we had the power to, I would be totally okay with going through.
And Iraq too. Don't forget Iraq. Iraq needs
Russia's on it
across the world.
Iraq and Afghanistan need
American all of those two. Every single place. Every single place where human rights are being violated, we should step in and physically stop them. But we don't have the power to do that, unfortunately. So here we are. But I do want to move on. And I want to
add one thing.
One thing.
Yeah,
after I say this super chat, I will give it to you, and then I want to pass the mic to Lactoid as well. Mega Lag for $5 to say, question for Dev, since you mentioned Voltaire, what Enlightenment philosopher do you like? Are you a Francophile or an Anglophile?
I didn't mention Voltaire, I mentioned Locke. But like my favorite Enlightenment philosophers, it's got to be Edmund Burke and Francis Bacon, I think. Those two are like top tier.
Bacon. Okay, gotcha. Okay, go ahead, Radical.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, obviously, like, we're talking about a wide variety of different ways to identify what is, like, use the word right. Like, we can talk about like what a specific like nation, like the United States, recognizes as a right. We can talk about international bodies and what they recognize as a human right. And I think oftentimes, I think this is kind of what Lactoid was getting at, is that what we're talking about is what we want to be provided through those different systems. And I think there is an important nuance there that we're kind of skirting around. But
Certainly. Okay. Lactoid. It's been a bit, but
Sure. No,
I'm
you're
gonna
all
give you
good.
the mic
No,
now.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want quickly. I agree actually with that categorization. And that's part of the reason why when you guys were saying like should this healthcare be a right? Whenever I hear that, like yes, I don't think that it's a right in the actual sense of what right is. But when people are saying that, what they're saying really, like without getting too much into the semantics, like really what they're saying is I think that it's good if we violate a bunch of people's rights in order to provide this privilege, because this privilege, like the benefit is excessive to some degree that I think is valuable. That's really what they're saying. And so that's just what I assume. But yeah,
See,
it's definitely not
I
right.
know exactly. I know exactly what you're saying, and I have to disagree with you because I've met so many people who nonetheless default to you can't debate what human rights actually
Yeah.
are.
Well,
That
they're
makes you a
crazy though.
bigot.
Yeah, they're crazy though.
And it's like, well, hold on, hold on. The view that you can't debate human rights means that they've been set into stone by some higher power than just a government, which is like the John Locke view of what human rights are. But if they come from governments, then you necessarily have to be debating them. It's a mediation process between different people's opinions on what rights are. And they like whenever I've debated trans activists, I think they're probably the worst for this. They fluctuate between these two definitions of what a right is. And it's like I don't even think you know what you're fucking talking about.
Well, you're right, and if
I
this
think
was that kind of
oftentimes what-
conversation, then yeah, I would agree. Like we should be really diving into here. But I think both of them are at least they're referring to the right in the privilege sort of way, as opposed to like, well, we can't even have this conversation because don't question my human rights. Like I agree. I know people. I know who the kind of people you're
I know
referring
what you
to.
mean,
Yeah, they're just that's crazy. But no, I understand what you're talking about too.
Yeah, well, I think most of the time those people are potentially saying like, "Hey, I don't want to." I mean, and they might not be wording it this way, but I think this is the sentiment they're putting across is like, "I'm not going to debate like whether or not I should have these rights with you. I know that I should have these rights," and they don't want to have an argue. They don't want to hear like you or whoever argue like, "No, you actually shouldn't have these rights." And I mean, that's like fair enough. I mean, like we can argue that there's like that's a shortcoming, at the end of the day, because at a societal level, we have to have debates about these things to develop them. That's how like progressives have gotten so many victories throughout history is through debate and activism and et cetera. But like I definitely I respect the individual's choice to like be like, no, I'm not gonna like argue with some fucking loser who doesn't think I should have like right to healthcare or whatever. Like I mean, yeah, fair enough.
I mean,
and just to be clear, just to be clear, I'm not anti-trans rights. It's just that I've encountered so many, I guess, just low IQ trans activists who don't even know why they believe what they believe or what they're even fucking saying, and I've become fed up with them, frankly.
there's a lot of pro-choicers who operate this way too.
Is this? But is the
And
same thing, for
pro-lifers, for that
example?
matter, and just people in general. Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just people in general. Because as soon as you start talking about guns, it happens the same thing too. I don't want to talk about it. Like there's no conversation to be had. You're not going to take my guns regardless. So I'm wasting time on having this conversation. So it's on both sides of the aisle, to be honest.
Sure, but all of us here, we all debate ideas because that otherwise, what's the point of being on a panel show, right? But in summary, yeah, it's not a right. Of course, it's not a human right. Somebody else's labor is never your right. You don't have a right to somebody else's body or their labor. Otaku.
So I think the instead of the conversation, like I see what you're saying about the nuances, like whether or not like we might identify like for the emergency room example, like whether or not we want to call that a right in this conversation. I think the more interesting dial that I was trying to push on with that is what expanding that healthcare part of like because they do have a right, or they do have the ability that defended by the U.S. government to get emergency room care. We agree with that.
Correct.
So like, what else would fall under that? Is that like the only thing, or are there other areas of healthcare that this can potentially apply to?
Well, that's what I believe.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure.
But I was going to push back on Dev here about his argument about sovereignty, because I think not that I want to be careful. I don't want it to necessarily change your mind. Maybe you're going to become right wing. Who knows? But when you say that like it is a violation of sovereignty, or like we can't have sovereignty if we don't deport illegal immigrants, I guess I want to explore that a little bit more. Like the reason why I'm confused about that is, so sovereignty would just mean, in my mind, sovereignty is just the authority of a governing party within a certain borders to determine policy within those borders. If the sovereign of that entity, like if the sovereignty decides, hey, we're not going to deport all the illegals, how is that not an exercise in sovereignty?
I mean, that's true. That is like the one loophole where, yes, in fact, it is. Like, if you could have a government that says, you know what, we're just going to have no border policy at all, and it doesn't matter who comes in. We're not going to make sure that whoever comes in is actually who they say they are. We're not going to check anyone. That's going to be our policy. That kind of state would probably collapse in short order, but you could do that, yes, and it would be within the bounds of the sovereign. It would be his exclusive jurisdiction to decide that. Yes.
I don't disagree that if you had like some kind of system like that, it would be like pretty chaotic. The main reason why I consistently describe myself as not a hawk on immigration, and I actually disagree, I think, with the expansion of ICE the way it's been done, is just because I'm sorry, I'm okay with like government enforcement for things that have a positive ROI, not only like money wise, but positive ROI in terms of, hey, we're like actually solving a big problem. The kind of person that you were asked about, and violent illegal immigrants, 100%, or criminal illegal immigrants, or even illegal immigrants that don't do any work at all. But the question that was asked you earlier, Dev, was a guy who's worked 20 years, hasn't committed any crime, has like done nothing but like contributed, and like we find him and we catch him. I don't see what the positive ROI is on removing him. And if the sovereign agrees, and we say, like, the sovereignty entity says, look, we're not going to deport people who've been working for 20 years because they provide positive ROI, I don't see how that's necessarily a violation of sovereignty. We could probably just let that guy stay here and work.
I don't necessarily disagree when it comes to an ROI perspective, but I do think that, like, you start getting into a death by 1,000 cut situation where for one guy there's probably no problem, but if you get to like your 10 millionth guy, you probably have some underlying issues that you should not be ignoring.
Well, let's roll with that. 10 million hardworking people who have worked 20 years and haven't committed any crime. Why would this demographic be a problem?
Well, how do they come in?
Illegally. We're just assuming they hopped the border. In fact, they didn't even just overstay the visa. They did the full misdemeanor. They just hopped the border and like ran into the country and started working.
Right. So what does that say about, one, how you police your border, and two, how your laws are enforced inside the country? What does it say about your employers in the country that are actually hiring these people, and they've been keeping the secret that they've been illegal for 20 years? Like, there are a bunch of other problems underneath this that can't just be ignored. Even if you work out the ROI and decide that you should keep these 10 million people, fine, but there's still other problems that must be dealt with here.
I don't disagree that there's other problems there, but like if your issue is that you're saying this is like this makes a country not sovereign, like if the country is sovereignly deciding to not enforce these laws, like that seems perfect. Like that's them exercising their sovereignty, right?
Already gotten to the sovereign thing.
Yes, yeah. We agree on that. Yeah.
Can I ask?
Fair enough. Okay.
Can I ask like here's a comparable policy? Do you think that because the federal government is not enforcing its weed laws on all the different states, do you think this is like some like infringement? Do you advocate for the federal government just like, hey, we're going to crack down on all those states allowing weed now?
No, because I think the border is fundamentally different for the reasons that I outlined in my opening. Because I think that if you have some sort of Westphalian non-interference principle between states, where you have equality of sovereignty between states regardless of their differing power, that necessarily requires borders, which requires territory that's marked out on a map, which requires some sort of system between these two states as people move between them that needs to be enforced. I think border law, for this reason, is in its own category different than something like not enforcing weed laws.
Yeah, I think probably that's going to be our major disagreement. I think the federal government retains sovereignty when it comes to weed. It does, right? It could launch massive operations. The DEA could launch massive operations against states that are keeping, weed dispensaries or weed grows. They could do that, but the policy, and this happened a few times in the beginning of Obama's tenure, but he very quickly moved to a sort of non-interference policy. We're just not going to fuck with them. And since then, every president, including Trump, has been, we're not going to really go after people for doing this because it just, there's this concept of like,
it's not worth the worth the squeeze.
Yeah, there's this concept of like, yeah, exactly, officer discretion, right? Cops, when walking around, they're not going to enforce every law. They're going to enforce the laws that they find to be like important, like critically important, right? They see a murderer running away and they run over to the victim and they see a bunch of like weed. They're not going to like stop all of a sudden and like really focus on like the weed crime, because that's not the problem right now. They're going to focus on the murderer. They're going to focus on the shit that's like more important. And I mean, when we're talking about this very specific character of and maybe it's 10 million people or whatever, but the very specific demographic of the hard-working illegal immigrant that doesn't commit crime, like this specific demographic, I'm on board with deporting almost everybody else. But when it comes to like the hard-working immigrant that doesn't commit crime, to me, like we can just maintain our sovereignty, and also we can also enforce our border, but also maintain our discretion and say, why use resources to go after this population when we could use resources to do more important things, like almost anything else?
So what would you do with that person then? With that person, what would you do with him? He's been there for 20 years. You give him a citizenship?
I'm not even necessarily making like, I don't think he should be a citizen. I'm not saying giving him any of like the benefits like voting, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just saying don't fuck with him. Let's don't send the cops over to like waste time putting him through the court process, loading him up in a plane and shipping him out. Like all he's doing is working.
Yeah, see, I understand, and like maybe from his point of view, okay, I get it, but I still think that creates a perverse incentive for people who aren't in the States yet. They see this guy and they're like, oh, I could be that guy now, and then they make the trek over, and it's like, well, now you're incentivizing increased illegal immigration because you're not doing anything about it. I think that's bad.
Yeah, hold on, but we're incentivizing the very specific demographic of illegal immigrants that comes here, doesn't commit crime, and works full time, while we're heavily disincentivizing the people who come here and don't work. That's like that, in my opinion, that's a pretty good ROI.
I mean, not necessarily, because I think you'd just be incentivizing any illegal immigrant, and then some of them would come here, or I get not here because it's Canada. Canada has different immigration problems than America, but still, some of them would come to America, and then some of them would actually end up committing crimes. Then it'd be a hassle to actually get rid of them. Like I do think it is just better to not incentivize illegal immigration by not providing that here's a carve out for the peaceful ones who just get by for a long time. I think you have to do so, even if it turns out that the best possible solution is what Radical Coder wants, and is to make them citizens. You must do something.
I said a pathway, a reasonable pathway. To be clear, like I'm not saying just you're a citizen now. Like I mean, like I think that would.
Well, we've done that before, haven't we? With
yes, that was
Reagan.
Like, I think it was right? It was under Reagan. Yeah,
Reagan.
And I remember this debate happened. I'm not that old, but like I recall reading about the debate that happened under Reagan, and they basically said, "Listen, we can do this one-time amnesty where you all become citizens, but at this point, we must now start enforcing border law, or else we're just going to incentivize more of this." And then that's what happened over the next 40 years. And now America finds itself in the same position as last time. Well, and I don't think you can just keep doing this every generation.
To be clear, with the Reagan thing, there was supposed to be other things that were put in place, right? Increased border security, increased restrictions on asylum seeking, etc. Right? That just weren't. But I can imagine a situation where we do just grant anyone who's been here for X amount of time, who hasn't broken any laws and has contributing to society, with the metrics that we put into place, right? We can argue about what those are. We can say you are now a legal citizen, and we're providing you the benefits of such. I do think that incentivizes people who are here illegal to obey the law and to contribute, because they know if they do, then at a certain point they will become citizens. And I think that will cut down on criminal illegal immigrants. That will cut down on people who are just trying to come here and mooch off the system. It provides a sure guarantee for citizenship that I think might be good. I could be convinced to this.
I mean, I hope you're right, but I'm not convinced of it.
I think the path to citizenship is more vulnerable to the kind of problem that Dev is talking about, the sort of actual like encouraging people to come over problem if you're giving them this benefit. But when it comes, I guess I'm just not convinced on the actual empirics of spending the resources to deport everybody, including the hardworking ones, in order to discourage the potential of future ones coming. I mean, there's probably some level of deterrent effect associated with that. I mean, I don't know the exact what that would be, but I'm assuming that's probably the case. But I don't know. Like it's
Bring
very
back to-
expensive.
oh.
It's very expensive to do that, and we're not
Yeah,
deporting.
but
We're not
unlike you,
we're not
though,
deporting
I'm
everybody
not-
right now. We're not right. There's a lot of people we're not deporting. It would make sense to focus on the ones that aren't working. Honestly,
It's
So
funny
here's,
though. 'Cause
here's
Trump
the thing.
is-
Here's the thing. Okay, unlike you, I'm not allergic to taxation. That doesn't bother me at all. I don't mind if certain things that need to be done are in fact expensive. I'm okay with that.
you hold on. If you're going to deport every illegal, including the ones that have been working constantly, I think you probably even need more than the ICE budget increase. You probably need a lot more than that.
I want you to tax every single billionaire, every single millionaire, every single middle class person, and then pump all that shit directly into ICE.
Oh my
That's
God.
where all that money's going. 99% wealth tax. That's what we're doing.
I
Oh.
feel myself getting nauseated. Okay, we got to move on. Wick. I'm gonna
You
move
had me
you.
in the first half. Not gonna lie.
I do want.
Hey,
Yeah.
you actually look reasonable to me too. I was like, damn, he's very reasonable.
He started and then he wasn't.
I do want to get back to the healthcare portion of tonight's
Yeah.
discussion, and perhaps move it
a couple
a
things.
little kind of sideways here. I understand that healthcare isn't a human right, fair, but is it a moral good to expand if we can't afford it? And I think we can access to help people who are in need,
What
even
do you mean
if they
afford
are
it?
Huh?
What do you mean by afford it? I mean, we could afford.
afford it. Like it wouldn't be
Balanced budget.
too strained, strain our resources overly much. We're giving 40 billion to Argentina. Why don't we spend that 40 billion for the people who are here, even if they're
Well,
illegal?
first thing, that's a loan that we're going to get back. Second of all, this argument falls into the exact same problem that was stated before, which is just because the government spends money recklessly in one department doesn't mean, oh, well, we can just also do it again over here. Like we
Not
do it,
again,
we have a
instead of.
deficit, right? But okay, but we're getting that money back. Like that was a loan. It's not like a gift.
Go ahead, Radical
So-
Coder. You
Yeah. I wanted to bring it back 'cause, for the return investment thing. Like we talked about earlier about like California expanding and allowing undocumented immigrants. I dug into that a little bit, and it seems like there was like one estimate that said the expansion might cost about 2.1 billion. But that was if they expanded it to like all undocumented immigrants, which I think the expansion didn't actually do that. It expanded it to like adults in a certain age range. But regardless of all that, wouldn't it make sense that like when that initially happens, that there's going to be an influx in people and in expenses because there's going to be an influx in people going to the hospital and getting healthcare. Like, so the costs are going to go up at least initially, but that doesn't mean that like long term the costs are going to stay up, right? And it might save money in the long term. I think it's potentially like what the argument.
No, because they're going to
would be.
keep
Like,
using
why not?
healthcare. Because people keep using healthcare.
Yeah, but when people use healthcare regularly, it makes it less likely that they're going to have like huge expenses later on. That's
Once again, so first, California's own data was over 8 billion. It was like 8.1 or something. Secondly, emergency room expenses, like emergency expenses, are 3 to 5% of all healthcare spending. This is the
yeah,
part
but they're
that like
higher. They're like 10 to 50 times higher than other healthcare expenses. Yeah,
Right.
you're right. They're only a small percent.
well, that's what
but
I said
they're
before.
way higher.
Yeah, I understand what you said, but like yes, like an hour per hour, you're right. That it's going to be more expensive than other forms of care. Now, a lot of healthcare expenses are also like nursing room care, and nursing homes. That's the word I was looking for. Nursing home care. It's going to be like diabetes, cancer. All these treatments are like very expensive. I don't see how you like if the overall healthcare spending for emergency services is 3 to 5%. That means like the vast majority of healthcare expenditure is not this. Like, do you agree with that? Like somewhere between 95 and 98%, or 95 and 97% is non-emergency healthcare spending. And if that's the case, under what, even like intuitively, even leaving the data aside that shows it did cost a bunch of money, how could you make the argument that it's going to save money in the long run if emergency expenses are such a small percent of the spending, not just in terms of like the number of services provided, in terms of the spending, it's a tiny percentage.
I'm not sure I can like break down the projections, but I mean, it seems to be that a lot of people have argued. I mean, maybe you think these are all debunked or whatever. A lot of people were arguing that Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan, for example, would save money like over 10 years or whatever. So maybe they're all wrong. I don't know, but like I believe that a core part of that was that people would have access to preventative care by and large. So
No,
I mean,
Bernie's argument.
like, I don't know that. What?
Just to be clear, Bernie's argument, and this is controversial. This one is a more in-depth argument, and I think the data is more mixed on this particular question. Bernie's argument was that it saves more money because it removes the bureaucracy surrounding insurance companies, and then a lot of that money is saved if you go to a single-payer system. That was Bernie's argument, and I don't believe that he's correct, but there is more data to stand on that argument than there is on this argument. There's really, I haven't seen any analyses that the overall expenditure is going to go down if you expand healthcare provisions to beyond emergency care. I haven't seen anything on that, and even like by the most like favorable estimates of like reducing emergency room care, which again doesn't even appear that it does that, but let's just assume that it even does. You aren't going to make up for the vast majority of care, the 95% or whatever, that's non-emergency care that people are going to be using once they get healthcare.
Yeah, again, like I it's hard to like speculate. I just don't know enough about the exact projections for all these different things. So I mean, you might be right, and at the end of the day, it might be more expensive to for everyone to have like access to that preventative care. But I still think that would be a better world because I want people to have the access to those things. So again, it does kind of come back to that values thing.
Sure.
Like I would be okay if it. I mean, depending on just how much more expensive, I think we could talk about like the. Like, are you suggesting that it would be like massively more expensive, or like a few percentages more? Like, I don't know.
I mean, it would be significantly more expensive. Illegal immigrants, there's a pretty large population. It wouldn't like, I don't think it'd be it wouldn't double our like. It's not like you would see all of a sudden like, holy shit, like I can't afford this anymore. I don't think you would see anything like that. I do think it would contribute to like spending creep. You're going to see more expenditures, obviously. You're going to see overall. Probably going to see people like the amount you pay in go up by a faster percentage or by like a larger percentage. You're going to see taxes are probably going to go up to some extent. And look, maybe you agree with Dev. It sounds like you guys do. Maybe you're just like, yeah, just fucking take it all. Just take as much money. I think that's personally, I think that's kind of fucked. I think that taking a bunch of money is bad. And I don't think that we can afford a lot of the shit that we buy already. The idea of increasing the amount of stuff that we're buying and then just saying, well, either we're just going to put it on debt, which is bad, or we're just going to take it, which I think is also bad. I just, on a principle basis, I think this sucks. And again, that's not even addressing, I guess, I think a very large portion of the American population that, I mean, there's a lot of people here like Dev that they feel like this is ridiculous that these people who are broke, they did break the law to come into the country, right? They did. And now we're going to give them a bunch of free services. I mean, does that rub you the wrong way at all? Like, is there any kind of part of you which is like, look, like the guy who did the right, like who followed the law, like he waited in line, he went in, he got a ticket number or whatever, and then he went back to his own country to wait. Like he did what the government told him to do. Not only does he not get amnesty, he doesn't get into the country, but he doesn't get the free health care. Meanwhile, the person who did break the law, like who just ignored all of that and got into the country, now they get healthcare, a path to citizenship, they get all this stuff. Like, I think to a lot of people, this seems unjust.
I mean, I can see that feeling. But like when I think about people like needing healthcare, right? I'm not thinking about it in terms of like, I don't know. There seems to be like a dimension of like punishment for doing something wrong, and that punishment is you don't get access to healthcare, and you're framing it as a reward, like they're being rewarded with healthcare. But I mean, healthcare is not like something you elect to need. Like you're like we all eventually need to run into a situation where we need healthcare. So I think there's like a framing issue. I do have one a kind of pressure point on something you said earlier that
Before
Alexander Wren pointed out in my chat.
Yeah,
Okay,
before you get to that, and I do want to give it to you, 100 pesos, Argentinian pesos, to say, Wick,
How much is
Argentina thing is a loan. See, you're getting it back through Super Chats right now. You know what? If the $40 billion that Trump is getting is going to be repaid through Super Chats to me, I why don't we bump that number up, baby? Why don't we add a few zeros? But anyway, go ahead. Radical,
Wait, do you know how much money you just got?
It's not very much. It's not very fucking much.
You just got, on a rounded up, I think 7 cents. So you take that money.
You know what? I will take it. Go ahead.
Every penny counts. But yeah, Alexander pointed out that like if you have no right to someone else's labor, then even mandating ERs to take care of someone is kind of as bad as forced servitude, right? Like by your own
It is.
kind of logic that you applied earlier.
It is, and this is one of the biggest.
So why do you make that exception?
Sure. I mean, this is one of the biggest. This goes really into like theory, which we don't have to go into. But this is one of the biggest disagreements I have with ANCAPs. Like I argue with Scott about this all the time, where I recognize it as a right violation, but in my mind, like you have to, unfortunately, like violate some rights to keep a society going, and the point of a moral system is to like govern a society. I think that's the point of having one. And if your moral system will inevitably lead to the collapse of society or like some kind of like process that's just unworkable, then you have to disregard it, right? You have to be able to function. You have to be able to practically address issues, and then just say like, yeah, this sucks. Like we have to admit that we are doing wrong things and we take money from people to cover things. We have to, but like there are some services we have to cover. We have to have a military, right? Because if we don't, if we just say, well, we can't take any money because it's violating people's rights, which it is, but then the Chinese are going to invade and then we're going to live under a worse system, right? We can't do that. We have to have some level of structure. That's kind of my position on that. So I'm not saying it's not a rights violation. I just think that unfortunately you have to have some rights violations in order to practically have a society. A lot of ANCAPs disagree. They have these ideas about like private. Well, we'll just have private militaries and private courts, and I'm just very skeptical on how this would act. Like I don't think it would work, I guess is my proposal. I think that this would just default into some kind of weird feudal, kind of monarchical torture chambers kind of thing that I'm not a big fan of.
Are you saying that you're not going full democracy, the god that failed then?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty reasonable. I think I'm a pretty reasonable person.
Now, I recall going through, I think in like 2021 or 2022, I dug through a bunch of the ANCAPs and I was like, okay, I understand what the ANCAPs think now after reading like a year of their books, and I'm just like, this is fucking retarded. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just dumb.
Their moral system would be the
man.
best if people didn't do bad things. If
I mean,
we
yes,
were all
it's
good,
just-
it's the perfect system, 100%.
Listen, it's just as utopian as the communists in that regard.
It's more utopian than the communist in that regard.
Okay, well, that's another debate.
Or
for
less
another
utopian,
time.
sorry. The communists are worse. I'm sorry, the communists are worse. Just want to make that absolutely clear.
Okay, listen, both the ANCAPs
well, it
and
sounds
the
like, yeah,
communists, they both, the major critique of both of the systems is that human nature inherently violates what you've laid out here. And I remember seeing Academic. I don't know if you know who Academic Agent is. I remember seeing him basically lay out the logic for why communists and libertarians are basically two sides of the same coin, because they never actually engage with real politics when it comes to how their utopianism doesn't fucking work.
I think their approach to pragmatic politics has some overlap, and just in terms of their methods, perhaps, and their kind of absolutism mentality, their refusal to compromise. But I don't think that they are. I think that they're like on pretty opposite sides of the spectrum. I do think that anarcho-capitalists,
They are politically, yeah.
And so I just want to. I do respect anarcho-capitalists in terms of I think that like they're. I see where they're coming from, and I think they're like moral people in their thinking. I just think that their proposals are just unworkable, and that's why I think this debate I've been pretty open to like, well, in this particular situation we just have to do X, Y, Z because okay, we have a society in which like emergency rooms just they just don't check at all, or they do check, and if you show up without proof of citizenship, then they deny you. How many citizens are going to be denied? Some large number. I don't walk around all the time with proof of citizenship. And like I get hit by a car, and then I get taken to the emergency room, and then do I just die? Is that the proposal? This is not going to function, right? People are going to reject this, and if the people reject it, then it's going to lead to some kind of worse system, and I don't want that worse system. So,
listen. I feel very, very similar, except for like I would just expand my dimension or my domain of like what I think is worth infringing on those same things for, right? Like I think that like it's a bad world if people, undocumented or otherwise, really, they're unable for a variety of reasons to get any sort of healthcare up until the point where they're literally they require stabilization. Like that's a kind of dystopian system for me. So I think it's an impractical.
Seems to be working pretty
thing.
good so far.
Well, here. You know what? I think
Not
all
for
these
those people,
problems will be
right?
solved. I think all these problems will be solved with like a Curtis Yarvin style technocracy, where we all have various chips implanted under our skin that'll keep all this information on us at
Way.
all times,
They can
and so we won't
track
even have to
us.
worry about it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, and if they wanted to find us for any reason, say we made a tweet or something that the government didn't like, they could come to our house and ask us why we tweeted that. All those things, that would be fun. That'd be a great system to live under. Only not. Curtis Yarvin is retarded. I'm gonna just say it. He's
He's not
Listen,
dumb.
I
He's
don't use
not,
that word, but I agree.
he's not
no,
dumb. You could
he's
disagree
not
with him,
he's
but
not
he's
stupid,
smart.
but he's not stupid, but he's wrong about almost everything he says. But he's not stupid.
He's not. Yeah. He's
That
if
makes
you
it
read
worse.
him, he's actually he's pretty captivating just in terms of. I disagree with him a
I've
lot.
read his stuff, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
so
I
have
haven't
I.
read
He's
like
a good
all
So
his
have
writer.
I.
stuff. But I've read his stuff. I don't find it compelling. I don't even find it well written. But that's me.
I think
Um,
it's well written. I definitely think it's well written, but I don't find his arguments compelling at all. I mean, I'm sure Lacto, you probably came across in the same way that I did with the open-lettered, open-minded progressives, right? Probably your first exposure to him.
I don't recall that one. You have to explain to me.
Okay. Well, he wrote a 13-chapter book, and the book was basically meant to
I did
approach
read that.
progressives. He approaches progressives from their own point of view as progressives, and he structures his arguments specifically for a progressive reader to turn them into reactionaries,
Wow.
not libertarians, because he's not a libertarian, but reactionaries. And it's like, okay, I was like, I'm going to read this, and I read this, and I was like, man, he knows how to write a very interesting book, but like none of his ideas actually work. Most of his claims, when you actually test them against like anything else, they're bullshit. Like, but he writes very well. He writes very well. I'll give him that. Yeah.
okay. Well, we've kind of circled the drain here. Less disagreement than I thought there would be, but I think it was an interesting discussion nonetheless. At this point, I think it's time to kind of move on.
I think it was
And
disagreement, actually. I mean,
what's your disagreement?
I think there was still a fundamental disagreement on like basically whether or not it's a good idea to have illegal immigrants at all. I mean, I think there's still some level on the other side of the conversation. There's still some level of, well, illegals aren't that big of a deal, and it's okay if we just kind of ignore the fact that they hop the border, and we'll just like, I don't know.
Do you trust Donald Trump's judgment?
Trump's no.
Or do you trust judgment on American government?
Oh man.
Anybody?
Biden 10 years ago.
Oh, when he was a light Republican, kind of. It's just that
Hold on.
is what
Biden
did I?
was never a light Republican, except for maybe in the
Yes, you-
70s, maybe.
It's just him and corporate Democrats go to eat in the same restaurants and have the kids in the same schools, and they are.
Listen, I am
Actually,
pro corporate
they have pen
Democrat
pals.
all the way. I am flying the flag of Team Neoliberal right here. That is the best.
Well,
I would say.
I don't know if the
I would say-
neoliberals have been super. Let's deport them all. I mean, come on.
No, they
Definitely
haven't.
not.
But at the same time, like they understand that there is in fact a reason to have an organization like ICE and to have a properly funded border with actual
Everybody here
border
thinks
police.
that.
And
I don't think anybody
Yeah.
here. I mean, there are a lot of Democrats that have been walking around saying like, fuck ICE. We should just get rid of ICE. There
I
are,
don't think anyone
but nobody
cares about
here.
border, no.
yeah,
I
In fact,
think
actually
I mean
recall
ICE as it
when-
exists right now. Probably, a lot of these people are probably,
Oh.
in my ideal
Sure.
world, they'll face charges in the future. But
Yeah, to just to be clear, the people who are out there wearing masks, not identifying themselves, going out, tackling people to the ground, beating the shit out of them on camera, taking them, detaining American citizens for weeks. Okay, yeah, those people need to face charges. Those people, we need to clean those people
absolutely.
out entirely.
Yeah,
But
I-
the
the way that
organization
Trump
itself,
has used ICE, the way that Trump has used ICE and he's like transformed ICE has been terrible. But the idea of ICE as an institution, the job that it has to do, it is a real job. It does have to be done. You can't just go without that.
Is the execution not the police per se?
What do you mean?
Is the execution is how they actually going about things, like he's like the defund the police. He's not
Process.
against how the police he's not against the police per se, is about how they actually going about thing, the militarization of the police, like we said, the the masks, the getting people in cars,
Yeah, I agree
showing
with
up,
that, yeah.
like that's the problem, is the execution. So if it was, I think if everybody was getting a knock knock, who's there, his eyes, I think everybody was like, that's fair, right? But the way that
yeah,
they're
I don't
running
even,
things
I don't
already.
even
know what?
think it's bad for them to like raid a place if there's a lot of illegal immigrants. It's again, it's how they do it.
Are you okay? Question for y'all, right? Because I think, are you okay with criminalizing the business owners that actually giving
Yes.
jobs to these people?
Yes.
I think there has to be some sort of charge.
I think
Yeah, I think so.
that if you were a business owner and you were found to knowingly hire illegal immigrants, I think you should face some sort of legal penalty for that. Yes.
And
Yeah, I
why
think
do you
so
think
too.
that doesn't?
Actually,
Why do you think that is not happening in mass?
Because unfortunately, a lot of people who have businesses also have connections, and they don't follow that. They're not subject to the laws in the same way that the ordinary citizen is. Unfortunately.
Mhm.
well, isn't it also possible that a lot of the people who are employing these undocumented immigrants are like they're also just like small business owners and people who
No,
like
no.
we probably wouldn't want to throw in jail for giving these people jobs.
Well, no, I don't think. Again, depending on what's being done, I don't think they should be thrown in jail, but I think they should suffer a fine
Sure.
at least, right?
Well, hold on a second, Radical Coder. Listen.
So-
I've read my Trotsky, and I know for a fact that the
I haven't.
petite bourgeoisie is the cornerstone of fascism. What do you mean? We got to crack down on these people.
Thank you for the
I mean,
5.
I don't
Wick
know. I don't
TV
know what
gift
Trotsky
memberships,
means by
by the
that.
way.
But yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Hopefully, it's more than 7 cents a pop. Thank
th-
you for the 5 Wick TV gifts memberships. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for supporting Week. So this is my problem with what's going on, right? Is people are not consistent with what they want. Like they want to penalize one side but not the other. They want to criminalize one thing, but kind of, if I'm going to pay a fine and that person is going to get deported, right? I still have incentive to do it until I get caught again. This is what actually big companies do. They have $1 billion just for lawsuits. So they go ahead and they do everything that they shouldn't be doing. Because literally the part where they get caught is in the budget. So they take that $1 billion and pay the losses, and they keep poisoning people, putting waste in the rivers and all that shit, right? If people actually were serious about deportation and were serious actually about securing the borders, we will go back to what we were talking on the beginning of the conversation. You should take all the incentive to actually people come here. So now it's not your cousin telling you, hey, you can come in because the guy that is giving me a job can get you a job too. Is you can come in because he got caught. He went to jail for 20 days. And I think 20 days for these people is a nightmare. And if he gets caught again, he goes for 30. And if he goes again, he goes for 70. I think if you actually want to stop these and you are serious about it, you should actually penalize the people that are giving the jobs to people they know they shouldn't be working for them.
All right, deport all business owners to Alligator Alcatraz. Go. That's the plan.
Send them to Guantanamo because this is egregious.
I actually
Egregious.
I had a question that was like a while ago that was I lost it, and then it was just like, what was that? And it just came to me. So can I ask? This is a question for.
Go for it.
Okay, so Radical Coder and Fatty, you guys want there to, and Dev, your position's iron tight on this question, so it's really not to you. I already know what your answer is going to be. But to the other two here, if you think it'd be a better world if we provided healthcare to illegal immigrants in the country, and this is like the justification to do it because, hey, we're providing human beings with healthcare, why not provide people in other countries with healthcare?
Because that's not my point at all. My point is that disease don't look at passports and is a question of actually national security. By protecting these people that are in your schools with your kids, in your workplaces, in everything, you are actually protecting yourself. So it's actually a national interest. Is America first? Is not let's go ahead and help these people that are not from here. Is for you to
Yeah,
actually
but
secure your own interest.
sure, but even under that logic, which I think you're very much overplaying, like the actual impact of infectious diseases on healthcare here in this context.
Hmm?
But let's even under your logic, then wouldn't providing healthcare to like all Mexicans, for example, when we know Mexicans, like you said, like viruses don't know passports, they don't know borders. Wouldn't providing healthcare to all Mexicans then also be international interest? Because hey, now that Mexicans are healthier, right, they're human beings and they're healthier, et cetera. And now when they cross the border, we know they've gotten medical treatment, so they're not going to spread
Oh
illnesses
yes.
here.
And by that logical entailment, we should go to Mars and expand it in case they come here, and then go to Atlas I3 or whatever the comet that is coming toward.
Yeah, if we had a lot of immigration from Mars, then the logic would hold.
Yes. But
Well,
that's
what I would say,
We might need an emperor to run this.
Yeah.
We can install
And
him
that's
on
the
golden
point.
throne, right? We can,
That's why
Okay.
we cross. That's why we have lines. There's like, if you fuck a woman, it needs to be your wife. It can be your sister, because if she's a woman too, we kind of draw lines in
What?
place.
What's going on?
okay, let me
No, no.
wait, let me digress.
That's radical coder.
no,
I'm not
no,
gonna. We're
I-
not gonna talk about sister
it-
fucking. Okay,
no,
let's go to radical
but
coder.
that's the
Thank
point.
you, thank you.
There's the point. Like, if you say marriage is an institution between a man and a woman, if I was my friend next to my side and I actually like him, I would say, why can't I fuck my sister then if he's between a man and a woman? And this is a rabbit hole that you don't want to go. So that's why we stick to the national borders, and we stick with actually taking care of the people that come to your country, because you are going to piss off. We are going to piss in another person's toilet, and you don't want to do that.
Okay, I know.
What I'll say. Can I answer the question,
Yeah,
please?
yeah.
What I would say is primarily, right, and to be clear, like, I think that, like, before we expand, like, especially like, because we've played kind of fast and loose with like whether or not we're talking about people buying into a healthcare marketplace or actually like receiving free healthcare throughout this conversation. But like, before we expand free healthcare to undocumented immigrants, or potentially alongside it, we should expand free healthcare or free at time of use healthcare to American citizens, right? And so what I'm talking about specifically
does that include Medicaid expansions? Like, are you saying that every American should have free healthcare before we expand Medicaid to cover illegals?
What I'm saying is, if we're going to do universal healthcare, then and we're going to wait. Are you saying before we expand any Medicaid money to illegals?
Because I'm not talking about giving healthcare to like the rich other people.
I understand what you're saying. To be clear, I'm talking about extending certain things that we do provide to citizens to residents. That's basically what I'm saying right now. And I'm saying that if we expand those things that we to citizens, then, or if we expand what's provided to citizens, then we could potentially also expand those to other residents. And maybe to engage with your hypothetical though, like in long term, like let's say we've covered everyone who's a resident, legal or otherwise, in the United States, has access to healthcare by whatever means. Well, hey, maybe we should start looking around and seeing, because apparently we did something fucking awesome to achieve that. Maybe we should start looking around and see who else we can get healthcare for. Like, I don't know, that's a bad idea.
So let me like, this is the point of my question.
Just real quick, thank you to No Pants Kyle for your gift sub to Sister Fucker 69.
Very
I
nice.
appreciate that. And how much money to force SFO to answer a question? 10 gift subs, and I will make him answer any question you want.
Damn.
But thank you.
Wow.
For the gift sub.
Okay. So the point, Radical Coder, the point of my question here is, before you seem to indicate, well, like, you have an illegal immigrant, right? Somebody who came here illegally, is not a citizen of the country. And you're saying that it'd be a better world if we provided healthcare to them, right? And this is sort of like a portion of the conversation. They're a human being. It's better if they're healthy. It's just good, etc. And so my question for you is, why should it make any difference at all? Like, why do you treat an illegal immigrant in America, in terms of providing healthcare? Let's say they're poor, right? Providing a poor illegal immigrant healthcare. Why do you provide them healthcare and not provide a poor Mexican in Mexico healthcare? Why is just crossing the border give you this right, in your opinion?
Well, this is the first thing I said there is like the United States is responsible for people in its jurisdiction, right? Like, definitionally. So I think that's just where I would start, like, as a practical matter. Like,
well, we're not responsible for the healthcare of illegal immigrants, like except for specifically emergency room care by
law.
law.
I didn't say. Sorry. I said we are. Like, these are the people who are under our our laws, our jurisdiction.
No,
is what I said.
you are actually right.
I'm saying that we might want to include them under that. Like I'm arguing that's the whole debate is about whether or not we should include them in that. So obviously they're not.
I know, right,
right.
and I understand the whole point of the debate is to ask whether or not illegal immigrants should be included. I'm questioning like the actual like the consistency of this idea that hey, if you live under the American jurisdiction, which you illegally did by the way because you came here illegally, if you live under American jurisdiction, why does this thing give you the right to health care? And before, when we were talking about it, it just you said, well, it sort of falls down like a values question. Like they're human beings, and like I find it valuable to like keep human beings healthy, right? There's like a value statement there. My question is, why does your value statement begin like why is it only for illegal immigrants in America? Why not also give healthcare to poor people living in with the same way we give to illegal immigrants, let's say in California or whatever? Why don't we also give that to Mexicans, Haitians, etc.?
And like I said, I would go outward. I would expand outward from this. So like I would start like my primary goal would be to make sure that like American citizens do have access to universal health care. And then if we can achieve that either alongside undocumented immigrants and other residents, then I would include them if that's possible. And then from there we can, like I said, if we achieve that or we are on our way to that, then I don't think it would be a bad idea to start investigating how we could support other countries. I'd be fine with that.
Real quick, Lactoid, you mentioned that we aren't necessarily responsible for those under our jurisdiction, like illegal immigrants. We're not responsible for giving them healthcare under our jurisdiction. Would you extend that to illegal immigrants that we have arrested, detained? If they get sick under our care, like in our facility, does the U.S. government have a responsibility to see that they're taken care of?
That's really tough for me. I don't know. I'd probably treat them the same in terms of like the acute emergency care, kind of similar to any other illegal immigrant, but not anything else. I think I'd probably just hold the same standard.
So just the emergency stuff,
Mhm.
even if they got like pneumonia or
If
something
they
like
got
that, was not life-threatening,
diabetes,
but it might
Yeah, we
cause some
stabilize
issues,
them.
right?
We stabilize them.
what if they get diabetes or like they have like a chronic disease? Do they? Yes, there's a lot of people that
Sure.
have
Well,
diabetes.
yeah. Do
Very
we
very
supply them insulin if they need it? I guess.
Yes. Do we do it?
No, I don't think so. But then again,
Please,
my proposal, just to be clear, my proposal for like people incarcerated involves them working, and so they would be able to just either buy it themselves, or if they're illegal immigrants, then I mean, wouldn't they just like self-deport in order to get healthcare in the country that they came from? But of course, there's not going to be there's not going to be healthcare in the country they came from if they come from like, let's say Haiti, for example, or maybe it's poor healthcare in the country they come from. Let's say if it's like Mexico or other places in South America, and then you're right back to the question that I was asking a radical coder before, which is, there's this sort of like empathy that we have, this very strong empathy for like illegal immigrants that are incarcerated in America, but like we don't seem to have that same empathy for foreign citizens in Haiti or Mexico or South America that are also dying. Should we be shipping insulin to every diabetic in Haiti, Whick?
Yeah, but I know that you're trying to actually
You can afford
test
it,
our
yeah.
logic. I think you're trying
If we
to
can
test
afford
our
it.
logic, but it would be like saying, if we stop crime in New York, why shouldn't we stop crime in Ontario or Toronto? Like no, the crime is over there. Let the Canadians deal with the crime. Like we know it's a terrible idea a lot of times. Go sell freedom and try to save people on the other side of the planet in the face of democracy and freedom. Like it's let them deal with the crime. If an American conducts a crime in Canada, the United States don't have nothing to do with that. It's the Canadian government that has to apprehend the dude and send them back to the United States so they can actually have the proper situation. So absolutely not. This makes no sense at all. Like I don't get it.
I completely agree with that, but that's why I say you should deport people.
No. You have the right.
I
to
said at the
deport-
beginning, Dev's argument here is like Dev's position is the only one that actually, I guess, defeats this line of criticism that I'm putting forward.
Yeah, but Dev, do you, for example, a chronic disease, right? Insulin, or like a person that is diabetic and is insulin, like, do you think that while they are under American jurisdiction, they should actually have access to it?
Paid for by the government? If they're a citizen, yes.
No, they're illegals.
No.
And to be clear, like if they get deported to a country that doesn't have insulin, then that's the same thing.
But
Well,
that
let
doesn't
me ask
exist.
you this.
That doesn't exist. Like you, oh my god.
What is the insulin supply in Haiti or most third world countries?
Respectfully, respectfully, right? If the person was living diabetic in 80 for 17 years, and now all of a sudden they came to the United States, that person probably was getting insulin in 80 because if they didn't, they would be dead, right? What
Yeah.
the fuck
I mean,
are we
They
doing?
could,
I
they could
don't.
have come to America and gotten really fat.
That's probably where most of
No,
the
no,
diabetics
no,
would come
no.
from amongst illegal immigrants. Yeah.
Okay. So there's no diabetes type 1. There's nothing like that, right?
Actually, you know what? Okay, in that case, you might as well just. It's actually good to deport illegal immigrants. Get them out of the fucking goy
That's the
slop
logic. That's the
factory,
logical
where
entailment.
all they're
Yeah.
doing is just pumping out
No,
tons of
yes.
fucking.
You
Well,
need
here,
to
let me-
save their
Well,
lives by
growth,
deporting them
send them
back to
home.
Haiti. You got to save their
Let me
lives,
ask
right?
this.
We got to deport
This
them.
this is to Dev. Dev.
Yeah.
This is a good question. Okay. Illegal immigrants, do they deserve protection under the law here?
Yes.
Why is that different than healthcare? So why should we pay for cops to punish, like, if someone steals an illegal immigrant's car, why should the cops get involved with that?
So now I think there's two reasons for this. One is just going to be like the pure text of the Constitution reason, where when the Constitution means citizens, it says citizens. When it means people, it says people or persons. There are certain rights that are laid out in the Constitution as protected for all people, and then some that are only protected for citizens. And then you can kind of divide it up in that way. But I think on just a moral level, if we're going to be talking about the difference between a positive and negative right. A positive right is, in fact, the right to healthcare. But a negative right is the right to free speech or the right to self-defense, the right to not be killed by somebody randomly. So I think even when it comes to illegals, if we're talking about negative rights, I think that the government has a responsibility to uphold those negative rights.
Okay, but we're not talking about like self-defense. They're not there. They're here. They're at work. While they're at work, someone breaks into their car, takes their car, and steals it. We have so many other crimes that were done against citizens that the police officers should be investigating. Why take time to investigate that crime?
Well,
Because you can deport them and take their car.
based. Well, no, I think if we're talking about like what core rights that liberals value, if you go all the way back, you have like life, liberty, and property. Property is one of the is one of the big three. So if someone's stealing your stuff, I think that's more fundamental than something like healthcare.
Interesting. So you
wh- wh-
value their car more than their person?
That's exactly was my
Wouldn't their
point.
insulin?
More than paying for their healthcare. Yeah, I would.
Also, the
here-
service isn't going to them. It's to go to stop like a criminal, which we have an interest as a society don't have criminals running around. It's the same reason why if you assault a tourist, we also will arrest the person who assaults the tourist, but we're not going to
Okay,
give free
well, then
healthcare to
the police
tourists, right?
find the car. Sure, the police find the illegal immigrant's car. I mean, they've stopped the criminal, prosecute the criminal, but why give the car back?
I mean, the car.
I
would
mean, you
be
should
the
deport the
person's-
legal immigrant.
Yeah, the car.
You should deport the legal immigrant.
Well, hold on. The
and,
car.
and then send the car with them.
Okay, well, that's Dev's solution. In my mind, the car is the property of the person. I think that non-citizens can still own property. Like if you're a tourist, for example, and
No,
you
we're
come
talking illegal immigrants.
I understand, right? Whether you're illegal or not, right? If you're a tourist, for example, as well, like you're not a citizen, but you're in the country, and if you get assaulted, we're still going to arrest the criminal and we're going to return your property to you. Illegal immigrants can still own property. The question here is not whether or not illegal immigrants can own their own property; it's whether or not we should take property from citizens and give it to the illegal immigrants. That's the question of tonight's debate.
So let's test your logic too, right? Tourists come in usually legally. They overstay their visa. What, like, should we treat them as illegals because they actually are on the US illegally? Let's say
Yeah.
a Portuguese person like me, or a German, or a Irish. This
And the
man
answer is
is
yes.
a tourist. Yes.
Yes,
Mm.
if you are an illegal
Yeah.
immigrant, which you are if you overstay your visa, then you should be treated like an illegal immigrant. That's fair.
That's interesting. I don't want to actually.
I think it's reasonable to
insert
have
my-
different categories of these things, right? And different
but
like
that's
ways
the
of
thing.
engaging. Like
But Ryan, I don't. This is why I don't want to push my worldview, is because an American citizen wouldn't actually be treated that way in any part on the Western Hemisphere. Like they would have all the rights. They will keep their car. They will still get treatment in the hospital. They still can go to the clinic. I don't understand why all these other countries that are way less powerful than the United States can actually give a legitimate treatment to somebody that overstayed their visa, an American citizen. But on the other way around, it kind of like people are
There's a ton
against
of
it for
countries that'll
whatever
just
reason.
deport you. Like, try overstaying your visa
Yeah.
in China or Russia, or even
We're talking
Japan
about
or Germany.
we,
Like,
we,
maybe not Germany, but there's
Yeah.
just try Japan, right? I mean,
In,
good
in,
luck.
in Europe, they will still deport you if you overstay your visa. Like it absolutely
no, no.
happens.
Absolutely, but until they deport you, you still have all the other rights that the locals still have. You still have the right to go to the hospital. You pay a moderating tax of like $25. You can break your leg in 70 places, and they're going to fix you until, and they're going to send you back. They're not going to say we are going to just put a little bit of some syrup on your mouth until you get the pain done, and then we send you and ship you to the United States. You are going to have actually the treatment for what happened to you, and you're not going to be stripped out of your property. I don't get it why on the other side we have to have like these draconian ways where, oh, you overstayed the visa 2 days, tough luck, right? I don't get it.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. It is 8 o'clock. It's a little past time. I do have some things to do, so we're going to have to shut down the show. But I want to give each of the people here a chance to tell people who they are, where you can find them. I have links to all their channels in my YouTube description. And we got some great stuff coming up on the channel, gang. Great stuff coming up on the channel. Tomorrow, okay, I'm going to be debating with Talibots on whether or not who has the bigger problem with anti-Semitism in America, the right or the left. Okay?
Oh my god, dude.
I think the right.
Oh my god, dude.
I'm not here saying no one has like the left has no problem with anti-Semitism. It absolutely does. I'm saying that right now the right is being eaten alive by groypers in a way that
I
the
think
left
maybe like
certainly
2 years ago you could say the left. Not anymore though.
Yeah,
I think Nick Fuentes has now like leveled up massively on the right.
you know, when you got JD Vance saying, "Don't worry about him," right? Like, I think it's
I think the sentiment was there. I think it's just a mask off moment.
yeah,
If
but
you actually
we're gonna
look at oh sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, we're
Tomorrow.
gonna debate that tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow's debate. Tune in 6 p.m. Eastern. That should be fun. Then Tuesday, I'll be debating on whether or not I'm going to go on Sarah's channel, The Raging Tomato. I'm going to be debating on whether or not Tuesday's liberal victory, the blue wave, actually represents a what's the word? Not a recapitulation,
Repudiation?
but
Something like
a
that?
repudiation. Thank you. A repudiation of MAGA as a whole, and it was whether it was a referendum on Trump. I say it was, and we'll be debating that on Tuesday, and that should be fun.
I
That's
think
what
the
we
answer
got
to that is
coming up.
pretty clearly yes. Yeah.
Yes,
that's- yeah.
yes, that is a true thing.
Listen, you know, I can't wait until 2028 because you guys are gonna just start rounding up MAGA and putting them in like castration camps and shit. It's gonna be fucking wild.
That will happen if Democrats were in weak.
True,
But that would be dope to see.
but I want to.
After Jay Jones, it might actually happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure
please.
everyone's got closing statements here and gives their outro. So we're gonna start with Radical
Hey,
Coder.
hey, wait, Lactoid. I was saying that it was a good thing. This is a good thing to do, man. Get all those MAGA genes out of the gene pool.
You might be being serious, but I know you're joking. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that are actually kind of serious about, like, you know, they probably tacitly agree with the shit that Jay Jones was saying.
We might have to have a debate on that at some point. But regardless, I'm going to give the mic first to Radical Coder, and we're going to end with Dev. And that's the order we're going to go in. So, Radical Coder, close us out.
Yeah. So I mean, there was kind of some definition warfare about this, but again, it seems broadly that everyone here agrees that at some point, certain kinds of healthcare, specifically emergency services and stabilization, we accept this as what I think is still fair to at least colloquially describe as a human right in America, whether you're documented or not. So what I'm suggesting is, and there's obviously debates about how much this will cost long term or short term. As I dug into it a little bit, and someone messaged me and sent me a bunch of other things. Apparently, California, as I suspected, did a whole bunch of other stuff alongside this. So it wasn't just that they expanded it to undocumented immigrants, but obviously costs went up from all of these things, and it did include expanding coverage to undocumented immigrants. But I think that it's probably a good thing to make it so that people don't have to wait until they are literally unstable, definitionally unstable, to go to the hospital to get stabilized. I think this is just a bad reality to live in, especially if you, I mean, maybe Dev would just send these people back. I don't think that's the right move. Lactoid at least agrees that like they should be allowed to stay here. And I think if they're going to stay here, then why would we put them in this situation where the only way that they can get healthcare is to be dying, basically. This seems like a kind of a ridiculous thing, and this obviously extends to Americans. I believe that people should have access to these things, but with undocumented people, I think a lot of the Democrats in that panel, some of them were talking about expanding universal health coverage, giving quote unquote free healthcare to undocumented immigrants. A lot of them were just talking about giving them access to a marketplace. All of them were talking about major reforms that would have to, that they, as Democratic candidates, because their constituents want them to account for undocumented immigrants, they are doing what they are supposed to do as Democratic politicians who are going to be elected by those constituents. So I think it's good to expand the amount of the kinds of healthcare people have access to, and the amount, documented or otherwise. It seems to be a generally good thing if you like people being healthy and alive, which is something I'm a fan of. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, thank
thanks,
you for
Whick.
being here.
Oh, and sorry, I'm Ryan, Radical Coder. Last time I was here, I think I had just hit like 600 subs. We're at like 1,100 right now, so we've been making big moves over the last few months. I've been streaming a ton, and we've had a lot of organic growth. We've got a nice little community blooming up here, and yeah, we're going straight to the moon. We're halfway to Mr. Beast numbers at this point, so come hang out.
Go give him a follow. Go give him a sub. I got a link to his channel in my YouTube description. He spent his time on my channel. You should give him some flowers. Go and sub to his channel. Lactoid, please.
Yeah, no, I mean it was a good discussion. I mean, with all due respect, I'm sorry. I sort of echo what Wick said earlier, which is that a very strong argument in order to provide illegal immigrants with government-funded healthcare, I don't think was really made. At the very beginning of the discussion, we all said, yeah, this very specific situation of emergency room care, like it should be provided. I was saying that the emergency room should be able to have expanded powers and trying to recoup those costs. Sure, like this is like the very limited service that we have. But then nothing else. Obviously, at least all the Democrats in 2019 on the debate stage are obviously referencing government expenditure beyond that, whether it be some kind of subsidized health plans that you can purchase, or whether it just be flat out like on the totally other end of the spectrum, which is free healthcare, free health, specifically sex change operations for illegal immigrants. And of course, that was the one that was the nominee for the 2024 election, the Democratic nominee. So, the $8 billion that I was referring to, this is the one, like the amount. I know California did other stuff too, but that $8 billion is the number attributed to the increase in healthcare costs towards illegal immigrants. There's other costs on top of that. California also spends a fuck ton of money, but it's a lot of money, and the data doesn't seem to indicate that it saves money. The data, it doesn't even really indicate that people go to the emergency room less. There are some information, studies and information that indicates that people might go to the emergency room even more. For example, in Oregon, they didn't expand healthcare specifically to illegal immigrants, but they expanded it to populations that didn't prior have insurance, and they went to the emergency room more. It doesn't save money. It costs a whole bunch of money. And so the real question is, American taxpayer, do you think that you should spend extra money, that you should have more money taken from you, more resources taken from the citizen, from the American taxpayer? Should you have your shit taken? And should it be given to services for illegal immigrants because of the sort of value arguments that were being made later in terms of, well, human beings deserve government-sponsored healthcare and all that. And I would say, I not only am I not on board with universal healthcare, and not only are Americans not on board with universal healthcare, but I think providing free healthcare to illegal immigrants is just beyond bananas, right? We're going to the most radical position the thing that Kamala had to ignore and dodge during her whole campaign because America, we all thought it was dumb. And unfortunately, I agree. I think it is dumb, and there's no reason why we should do it. And you can find me on
Okay,
Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Lactoid. Always a pleasure. I have a link to his channel. He's spent his time with us tonight giving us content, so you can give him some flowers, even if you don't like what he said, right? You can go in there, give him a sub, help him out. It'd be really appreciated. Next up, Fatty, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for being late and the technical issues, but have a new setup, a lot of rerouting. I have no idea what I'm doing, so I apologize. Okay, once. The second one, it was a good conversation. I'm trying to integrate a little bit more because now we're going to talk a little bit more about politics. So I would appreciate if the invites would keep coming. You can follow everybody on my side. The links are on the description, so go ahead and follow them, please. I would appreciate it. And finally, I think the United States needs to start to actually be the power that we always thought they were, not the third world country that takes showers every day, so you don't smell what is going on. If every other country can do it, they can do it too. Start with your own citizens and then expand it to the people that cross your borders. So you actually can have healthy people around other healthy people. I don't see no problem with that. I just think once again that, like I said on the debate, this is a lot of jealous indignation. Is truly, I would be jealous too if I couldn't afford even paying insurance, or I would spend a bunch of money paying insurance and other people that are not from here getting the treatment for free. But the day that everybody actually has universal health care, like most of the westernized countries, I think most of Americans are going to be okay with Abuela and whatever person comes from Haiti to have at least the chance as a human right, in my opinion. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you. And Ryan, thank you very much for leaving you alone and abandoned in the middle of the wolves. But actually, the two gentlemen was actually pretty cool. So I think you did well. Appreciate your friends.
Okay. Gang, if you want to find his channel, I have it linked in my YouTube description. You can go and give him a follow. He's given his time and energy on our show, so we can give him a follow. Can't we, gang? Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Last but certainly not least, Dev, close us out.
So when you pitched this to me, Wick, I thought you're gonna have like people on either side of it who are way more pro open borders than they ended up being. That's how you initially pitched it. Because like I was expecting someone who was like a Vicky Osterweil style. Open borders are good. Theft is good. All cops and governments are evil. More illegal immigrants are just more good, like definitionally. I guess you couldn't find anybody like that, eh?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
those people exist, but they're fucking insane and they don't want to debate usually.
that's pretty much the problem. They would be like, why am I debating this? This is a human right. So
Yeah, I have found that most of the time when you deal with like crazy blue sky anarchists, they never fucking debate anything, and it's kind of a shame.
to be clear, though, it's getting harder to get right wingers too.
Yes, well, I mean the whole Sargon debacle was holy shit, dude. The fact
Sargon refuses, and others of his ilk refuse.
Well, you guys are mean to us, and you know. Well,
no,
Blackwood,
listen.
we are not mean to you.
What up, nerd?
Well, we're mean when you deserve it. Okay.
Listen. All right, Sargon wanted me to pass on Loner Box's channel to him because you know maybe there was some interest there for them to debate the UK immigration issue. And as soon as I sent him Loner Box's channel, he vanished. He disappeared like a puff of smoke. He's poof. He was gone. It's like, oh my god, dude. And then he goes on Twitter and says that leftists won't debate right wingers anymore. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I had a fucking aneurysm reading that. Jesus. But anyway, sorry. But basically, I'm not anti-tax. I'm not anti-government. I'm not anti-universal healthcare. I just think that following the rules of citizenship is actually really important. I see no reason for people who have snuck into a society against the rules of that society to gain the benefits of that society. It's really just as simple as that. So that's kind of where I stand. And healthcare is only one part of that larger puzzle, I think. That's where I stand on it. I guess at this point, like I've basically just kind of devolved into a video essayist of like middling levels of renown. I know that Wick, you watch my videos. I think Radical Coder, you've reacted to a few of my videos as well over the years.
One back in the
That's
day.
what that's what I'm known for now. Is I make long, boring, fucking 3-hour video essays. That's my thing.
Well, you know what, gang? You should go watch his videos. You will be more educated on a topic if you go and you watch his videos. So please go and watch his videos. Go give him a sub, give him a follow, and maybe we can drag him
Hold on,
into
I just saw that. Did you just do like that little hand symbol of like not really radical coder?
Look, your critical race theory videos sucked. Like, I'm just gonna be real with you, but whatever. You seem to have leveled out reason. I don't remember which one it was. It was like the origins of critical race theory or something. It was garbage. To be honest, the first half was interesting. It was like educational, but then like when you started like giving your input on it, it was awful.
That was the Antonio Gramsci video, right?
Maybe I have no. It was in 2023. I have no.
Very briefly,
Okay.
what's your position on CRT, Dev?
On CRT.
critical race theory.
Right. Sorry. Oh my God. No, my head's currently swimming. I think it's mostly retarded, but like the right wing turned into a boogeyman for a while there, and it was just like, okay, you guys don't know what you're fucking talking about. It became the thing that like right wing talking heads would trot out on Fox TV as like the current scare for like 6 months, and then it vanished, and none of them actually knew what it fucking was. However, what it actually is also not that great. So
What it actually is like worse than what the talking heads were describing it as.
I would encourage anyone who feels that way to go look at the Encyclopedia Britannica like explanation of critical race theory. It's quite reasonable. It basically just outlines that it says that like race is not a biological category with like personal traits and stuff. I would love to. That's my pet project. So
hold on. Race isn't a biological. Okay, listen, dude. All right, let's say you're having sex with your girlfriend, okay, and then let's say 9 months later she pops out a black baby. Are you just going to be like, listen, race isn't a biological, it's not a biological thing, so there's no big deal here, right? Everything's fine. Are you fucking kidding me?
It's not because he's black.
All the critical race theorists are saying.
It's not because he's black. It's because he's not yours. Because I guarantee you, if that son is Ryan's son and not your son, you're going to be upset the same way. And Ryan is probably.
Yeah, but it'll be easier to tell.
Though, is that there's clearly a biological component to what we call race. It's obvious, but like, and you know what? I will say,
critical race theorists also acknowledge that. By the way, like what I just said doesn't disagree with that either.
So here's the thing. My Antonio Gramsci video, which I think is what you're talking about, because Antonio Gramsci was the origins of what eventually became CRT. So it was more of like an exploration of Gramsci's ideas. I did another video a year later where I was like, okay, I did some things were wrong in that video. I made this like 1.5 hour long video that's just plainly titled, "Can you be racist towards white people?" I think the answer is actually yes, you obviously can. But that video, I think here, you know what? I'll just show myself. Go watch that video and see if you have the same problems with it. Because I think I tackled CRT better in that video than in the Gramsci video.
Okay. And if anyone wants to know if you can be racist to white people, just ask me and I'll be racist to white people for you. I'll demonstrate.
Most racism is against white people.
Anyway, another debate, another day. Thank you for being here, gang.
Another day.
We're going to wave bye, everyone. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye, Whick.
There we go.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry it wasn't as spicy as some of them, but I appreciate you guys from coming on and having a discussion. Sometimes it's okay to be low-key. Tomorrow's probably going to be a knockdown drag out between me and Tali, but we'll see, right?
Nice.
Once again, Riz, I apologize for like all the up and down and left and right. I just couldn't get it. And I still don't know the sound settings are all fucked up. So I need to go ahead and see what I'm missing because they shouldn't be like this. But I appreciate y'all, friends. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, both of you gentlemen, and see you around. Appreciate you.
Yep, I gotta go too. It's dinner time.
Real quick, Dev, before you leave, in your CRT video, do you go into like the actual like the creators of CRT specifically, like Farber, Sherry, these like the law professors that wrote about like created the theory back in the 80s?
Not those two, but there's what's her name? I have to go look it up again.
Sure.
But yeah, I did go through it for sure. I also pointed out that it kind of had the same origins as David Duke's philosophy, and it used the same name for a little while there before they changed it. They're like, "Oops, maybe we should change that."
Yeah, I just want to CRT is actual like it's anti-scientific. It is worse than what the talking heads on Fox News are saying it is. If you actually look into like the history and the statements that were made by the professors who created it, it's lunacy. They deny objective truth. Like that is like one of the foundations of critical race theory. That truth is not something that that's real.
The person that I went into was Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah, Crenshaw. Yep, she's one of them as well. Yep.
Yep, that was the main one that I covered. And I went over the textbook, Critical Race Theory, the Key Writings That Formed the Movement. That was the main book that I used.
Yeah. No, Crenshaw was, that's one of them too. Yeah, crazy shit.
Yep. I gotta go eat, though. I'll see you there, man.
All right, peace. All right. What's up, guys? So, I turned off my air purifier because it's kind of loud and it was like making a lot of noise during the discussion or before the discussion. And so I'm like, oh, I better turn that off. And I turned it off and I am just dying right now. It is like plugging on my nose. I think I don't know. I think that's either dust or like some kind of mold or it's just every fall, I swear to God, it hits me like a truck. But I hope you guys like today's episode. We're going to raid on out into our friend Admiral Gibbs, and I'll catch you guys later.
Aye,
Hey,